Previously on Higurashi When They Cry console arcs.
さて、あっちの方も心配ですね。そろそろ私たちも向かいますか。シオンさんもミオンさんたちのことが心配でしょう。
そうですね。でも少しだけです。
さすがは園崎家次期当主の片割れ。お姉さんへの信頼も深いってわけですな。
I kept quiet and smiled back at him. That's not it. It's not because of a bond of blood. It has nothing to do with our sibling relationship. Because I know. I understand that she and I each have something precious that we'll do everything we can to protect. That's right. I can't be her any longer. And she can't be me either. But that's fine. Because that's enough to be happy. I'm sure of it.
私は園崎シオンで十分です。
I looked up at the sky as I muttered that to myself. Good luck, Mion. I'll be doing my best as Shion too. Even more than ever. So, I'll have to say goodbye to the name Mion. It felt like an intense weight that was resting on my shoulders suddenly disappeared.
人の身に過ぎたるを知らぬ愚かなる人間たち。汚すことを許されぬ聖地を踏み荒らす罪を知るがいい。感謝しなさいよ。聖地を汚した罪を償う機会を与えてあげるんだから。恐れを知ることかなわぬ哀れな人間たち。いいわ。あんたたちが我が身でしか知ることができないというなら、私がそれを教えてあげましょう。ほら、哀れなウグイスが一羽踏み込むことを許されない地に迷い込んできたわ。そんなにも知りたい？鬼の世を知りたい？じゃあ人の世に別れを告げなさい。私の忠告に耳を貸さなかった愚を今から思い知ることね。まだ聞きたいのね。痛みを伴う声を。
ウグイス1より本部。ダメだ。士気の高揚は困難。隊員の脱落と士気低下は深刻。これ以上の戦線維持は困難。損害が増えるだけだ。
だから落ち着け、ウグイス1。他の隊員は野戦の素人ばかりじゃねえか。お前はあの地獄の卒業生じゃねえか。そのお前が混乱してどうするんだ。落ち着け。お前が範を示せ。
悪魔だ。悪魔が出た。
こんな感じでいいかしらね。
殺してやる。あのガキどもがつけ上がりやがって。全員生皮剥いで八つ裂きにしてやる。
Takano roared that out, then grabbed a radio and began shouting into it. Her intense rage had completely replaced her usual cool demeanor. Even her trusted advisor Okunogi looked dismayed to see it.
聞こえる。私は高野よ。三頭陸さよ。あんたたちの最上位の上司よ。聞きなさい。鬼もいないし神様もいないわ。もしいるなら戦いなさい。神などその座から引きずり下ろしてやるのよ。ヒバリとウグイスは合流して戦力を立て直しなさい。大鳥は白鷺の残存と合流。敵は山頂付近の営林署の資材小屋あたりを本拠地にしている模様。高所を取られてるわ。こちらの動きが筒抜けのはず。 習はあって当たり前よ。差し違えてでも倒しなさい。
サンサ、一旦下がってフォーメーションの再編の許可を。日が暮れたら敵の追撃どころか脱出も困難になります。
許可できるわけないでしょ。私たちは今奴らを完全に包囲して追い詰めているのよ。ここで退けば逃がすわよ。私たちは両手に手をかけてる。あとは締めるだけなの。
サンサ、お怪我に触りません。早く治療を。
うるさいわこのヘボが。あんたたちがしっかりしていればこんな事態にはならなかったんでしょうが。そんな風に口先だけで心配する暇があったら奴らの首でも腕でも引きちぎってここに持ってきやがれ。
So, what will Takano do now? The leaders of the faction that opposed the Alphabet Project were already taken down. The people instigating Takano had been neutralized. In other words, her plans had already lost their legitimacy. So, they no longer had any reason to invoke the emergency manual. Takano could be arrested for causing a riot, or maybe they'd silence her in order to bury this conspiracy in the darkness.
使い捨てか。
Either way, Takano would lose everything she had, and she'd forever lose the opportunity to make her wish come true. She was, quite literally, doomed. Thinking about it like that, I felt sorry for her. She took over her grandfather's research and was passionate about studying Hinamizawa syndrome. That diligent attitude was the reason Irie had so much trouble believing Takano could be behind this conspiracy. And how must she have felt to have something she so earnestly worked towards suddenly taken away? No need to think about it. It was nothing short of utter despair. And just as Akasaka indicated, if someone offered her surface-level comfort, who could blame her for wanting to cling to it?
その結果がこの破滅。因果だな。羽生。リカ。
The crystal ball was roughly the size of a large marble, but it was carefully displayed on a small cushion, which made it clear it was more than a mere marble. And there was a reason for that, because that ball was a treasure entrusted to the Furuti family ages ago. I knew the purpose of that crystal ball, and so I gently picked it up and held it against my ear. That moment, two consciousnesses melded together, and the surrounding area was bathed in light.
羽生。やっと会えたわね。
ええ。ごめんなさいなのです、リカ。ずっとあなたを一人にさせてしまって。
最初は驚いたわ。でもあなたの気配をすぐに感じ取ることができたから割と早く冷静に帰ることができたけどね。
僕は全然感じなかったのです。だから目覚めた時から不安で怖くて、それどころか自分のことをリカだと勘違いしてしまっていたなんて。
無理もないわよ。だってあなたはこの世界に来た時から私の体を支配していたんだもの。
This world exists in a slightly different possibility along the original time axis. A parallel world, you could say. It was all the same, even up until the point where Rika Furude worked with Keiichi and the others to circumvent the tragedies. The only difference was that after her performance at the Wachanagashi Festival, she fainted from all the fatigue, combined with all the injuries she suffered. In other words, in my struggle to avoid certain death, I subconsciously activated an ability that allowed me to assimilate a Rika who didn't fall into the swamp.
知らなかったのです、 僕にこんな能力があったなんて。確かに時間を巻き戻すことは今までにも行ってきましたが、
別におかしくはないと思うわよ。私たちは今までにも幾百幾千の回数で時間軸を遡ってきた。だけどその結末が完全に同じであった時はほとんど、つまり私たちは可能性によって枝分かれした世界、平行世界を数限りなく旅してきたことになる。だったらその横に隣接する世界に次元の壁を踏み越えて移動する力があなたにあったとしても私は驚かない。
あなたは柔軟ですね、リカ。僕はまだ今一つ納得できない。
あんたは考えすぎなのよ、羽生。今ここにあるのが確かな現実でしょ。それに落ちたのがあなたじゃなく私だったら間違いなく死んでいた。ただかなり強引に能力が発動したせいか、沼の周りにいた圭一と山犬たちの一部も巻き込んでしまったみたいだけどね。
In June of 1983, mysterious deaths continued to happen year after year, which even claimed the lives of Rika's parents one year. And one time, while I was thinking over who might be responsible, for a moment, I doubted my eyes. I was at the main hall of the Fruity Shrine, a sight I should have been intimately familiar with. But on the altar at the top of the stairs, I saw the bloody corpse of a girl. And not only that, but it was...
リカ。
そんなこともあったわね。
駆け寄って声をかけても体をゆすってもリカは動きませんでした。息もしていなくて、もう完全に手遅れでした。最初に感じたのは悲しみ、そして怒りと恨みからの復讐の思いでした。でも僕はそれ以上にリカと過ごした幸せな時間を失いたくなかった。だからかつての同胞の掟に逆らってあなたに同化し、時間を巻き戻しました。そして惨劇に巻き込まれて命を落とすようなことがないよう、その運命の分岐点を一緒に探そうと思いましたのです。
おかげで同じ時間を無限に繰り返して生きる人であって人ならぬ存在になってしまったけどね。でも最初の巻き戻しで私を死地から呼び戻してくれたことは感謝しているわ。おかげで私いろんな人と出会ってたくさんのことを学ぶきっかけを得ることができたから。
でもそれがそもそもの間違いでした。
この世界を離れてみてよくわかったわ。幸せも不幸も生きているからこそ感じられる喜びなの。だからみんな一瞬一瞬を大切に懸命に生きようとする。無限に生きてきたおかげで私はそんなことも忘れてしまっていた。だから結局綺麗事を言っていたのは私も同じよ。それをみんなが、そしてあなたが教えてくれた。私の方こそごめんなさい。
Rika gently held my hand as she said that. It was soft and warm. Holding her hand felt so pleasant.
そうですね。僕たちはお互いにちょっとずつ間違っていたんですね。
外から自分の姿を見てそのことに気づけただけでも私は幸せだった。あなたのおかげよ。ありがとう羽生。
してくれると、僕も救われた気分になれるのです。この体、そろそろあなたにお返ししますです。おかげで、楽しい思いをさせてもらいました。
I rested my face against the tip of Rika's nose, and lightly rubbed it with my forehead. That moment, our bodies were wrapped in a fierce whirlwind. Then our bodies began to feel light, and we rose up into the air. Then, I was standing in the ritual storehouse, with my feet firmly on the ground. It's been so long since I had my own body. It's not over yet. There's still something I have to do. A whole lot of people are still fighting with all their strength and all their heart for my sake. For my happiness. And we've carved a path through destiny. All thanks to Hanyu, of course. So, now it's my turn. For the sake of my friends who carved out my path through destiny, I'm going to carve out a path for them too. And at the same time, unless we close the curtain on this tragedy, this comedy that has gotten so many people involved, she won't allow it to end. So,
今、彼女はこちらに向かってきているようです。行きますか？
決まっているでしょ。だから羽生、今度こそ力を貸してもらってもいいかしら。
もちろんなのです。理科の未来、部活メンバーの未来、そして
for everyone's future. Let's steer this endless journey toward the goal. With me and her on opposite sides of the coin of fate. And so it continues. Greetings, my name is Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of the Higurashi When They Cry console arcs. Now, if memory serves, we had quite the major revelation dropped on us in regards to Rika's true identity in this particular chapter. That being, it actually being Hanyu, that we've been following along this entire time. And we're about to lay down some serious smackdowns on Takano's posterior. Again. Which I am sorely looking forward to. But the question remains. Now that the Mountain Dogs' backup has effectively been cut off from them, and their numbers are starting to dwindle, what in her desperation will Takano end up doing to try to get the upper hand? Whatever it is, I doubt it's going to be pretty. The sky had turned dark, and the air was rapidly beginning to cool off. This was the end. Okanogi knew that instinctively. Okanogi already knew that the H-173 dispersal operation failed, but he made a point not to inform Takano of that fact. It would make a difference if he informed her now, because he reached an agreement with Takano that allowed him to reach the summit. Right now, Okanogi was thinking about just one thing. The ringleader that made today the worst day of his life. He didn't want to admit defeat until he managed to fire at least one arrow in revenge. Look out, Mion. He's coming for you. The battle was already lost. The only one who thought otherwise was the princess, although even she might not believe it. The squad members fell prey to all sorts of traps and surprise attacks, so Okanogi permitted all the injured and the soldiers who wanted to leave to retreat, aside from his personal squad. The police and the Sonozaki group members were probably waiting at the end of the mountain trail to apprehend them. Despite being seriously injured and covered in blood, the princess turned her medical staff away. She was so exhausted it was hard enough just to walk. Even if they could engage the enemy, there were only a few people on the team with the energy to fight. Eventually, the slope gradually became gentler, and the survivors of the Mountain Dogs arrived at the forestry hut near the summit. The forest opened up a little, but the sky was completely obscured by overgrown tree branches and leaves. Thanks to that, the airflow was poor, and the soft grass underfoot felt warm. They seemed to know everything was beyond ruin. Their numbers, their strength. At this point, they were inferior in every capacity. So even if they met with all their forces, the outcome wouldn't have been surprising. All the children who had driven the mountain dogs to ruin today were here. They fought today with all their might, despite being overwhelmed from beginning to end, and even though they should have exhausted all their physical strength, they should be standing over there. God only forgives the victor. The honor of victory is in spirit.
ようやく会えたな、チキショー。
あんたが山犬のリーダーってやつかい？
そうさ。そこにいるのは俺がさらったお嬢ちゃんじゃねえか。
Okinogi put strength into his heavy arms to point his pistol toward Keiichi and the others. And on that cue, all squad members behind him held their guns up at once.
山犬の大鳥ワンことおこのぎだ。お前らのリーダーに敬意を表する。名前を聞かせてくれ。
前原圭一。
I guess I was mistaken. I guess Mion is safe this time around. And I guess I should have realized that, since I am the club president now and all in this timeline. Keiichi took a step forward as he said that. This operation was actually being led by Mion and Sadako, but he likely wanted to keep the guns off them. Never mind. Spoke too soon.
いい目をしてるな。羨ましくなるぜ。
Okinogi smiled as he muttered that, speaking from the heart. He had clear eyes that shined in the dark. The strength of his will was dazzlingly reflected in those eyes. Okinogi wondered if he ever had eyes that looked like that. But thinking that was telling of his age, he shrugged his shoulders and bitterly smiled to himself.
とりあえず、まだどんなトラップが残されているのか知らねえが、ホールドアップだ。手を挙げて全員一列に並べ。
In response to that order, Keiichi and his friends gently raised their hands, and had a peculiar look on their faces as they moved into a line. 1, 2, 3, 4 people. 4?
おい、フルでリカはどうした？
リカちゃんは足を怪我してな。近くの小屋で休んでいる。言っとくけど、周りにもトラップが盛大に仕掛けられているから、下手に近づくと悪夢を見るぞ。
もうとっくに悪夢だよ。正直言って、もう俺たちはリカ城には関心がない。むしろお前たち、特にこのトラップを仕掛けたその子の方だ。
あらあら、それは申し訳ございませんわね。私、男性の好みには結構うるさいんですの。はっきり言ってあなたは私のストライクゾーンで言えば敬遠級というより牽制級ですわ。キャッチャーにも向かっていませんわよ。
言ってくれるな。ここのトラップは外国の戦場でもお目にかかれない恐ろしい代物だ。
Now that ain't a compliment, I don't know what is. Good going, Sadako.
よくもまあお前たちは平気な顔で動き回れるもんだと敵ながら感心するぜ。
ちょっとしたコツですわ。所詮人が仕掛けたものは人に見抜けないものではございませんから。
Now those are some wise words right there. Sadako generously tilted her head to the side and smiled as she said that. Based on that smile, Okinogi recognized that a trap was set up even here, but after a quick check, he couldn't find anything that looked like a switch by his feet. Then, maybe up above. He looked up as he pondered that, but the visibility was so poor he couldn't see clearly. What should he do? Move forward? Or force them to come to him? Or maybe just open fire straight ahead. That would be the simple solution, honestly. No, that'd be far too humiliating. Come on, man! I think at this point, Pride has long since been booted out of the 20-story window. Like, at this point, why not use the most effective tool that you have here to reclaim some semblance of a victory, even if it's a dirty victory all the same? I mean, come on, man. You got guns. Use them.
その場に伏せろ。うつ伏せになれ。
After feeling lost for a while, Okinogi ultimately opted to drive them into a corner, preventing them from running or fighting back. Keiichi and the others calmly followed the order and slowly squatted down until they were lying on the ground. As Okinogi considered taking some of them hostage and using them to get by the police, he suddenly felt there was something odd about the way Sako lay down in front of him.
おい、お前。
That moment. He heard the sound of a rope tightening, and then multiple paper bags came flying, swinging from all directions with tremendous momentum, colliding right in front of him. Too late. And there was some flour-like substance packed inside. No, the flour itself was the weapon. It was scattered through the air by the extreme momentum, bathing the surrounding area in a white haze. Oh, a makeshift smoke screen? And in this weakened visibility, he could see the backs of Keiichi and the others as they ran as fast as possible. An angry subordinate held up his rifle while coughing. That moment, Okinogi recalled something he heard in a lecture on military exercises. An enclosed space, at constant temperature, with dust, and a gunshot acting as the ignition, so it's a makeshift explosive!
皆さん伏せて。
やめろ！粉塵爆発だ！撃つな！
Shit! God damn it! As I desperately descended the mountain path and headed toward the shrine where the medical staff were stationed, I began crying without even realizing it. The tears came spilling down my mud and blood-soaked face. My throat ached, my wrists and my back too. No, my whole body felt sore, like I'd been bitten all over by insects. It was painful and unpleasant. I've been scratching at it all this time, and a slimy feeling came overflowing from inside. How obnoxious. How irritating. Was this flowing liquid sweat? Mud? Or my own blood? I was too miserable and exhausted to even make certain of that. She's not infected with Hinamizawa syndrome at the moment, is she? Every time I inhaled, I felt a sharp pain in my stomach. Probably a cracked rib. No, it's probably just her being fatigued from all her injuries. My feet were unfamiliar with hiking, so they've been screaming for a while now. Every step I took, the soles of my feet felt like walking barefoot. My heels and toes were crushed to the point of blisters and bleeding. My knees were shaking like they had no power left in them, and my senses were so completely dulled that I wanted to doubt these were my feet to begin with. Where did I go wrong? What went wrong? Who on earth made this mistake? Desperately thinking about the cause, getting angry, swearing and sneering at it. And as my haggard breathing finally cut off, I felt a sense of emptiness. How much time and effort did I spend to get to this position? How much pain and humiliation did I have to endure until I could build up this strength? Nobody else knew. They couldn't. Only I knew. I alone had been holding on to that. And yet, the thing I dedicated my life to, that I was finally about to obtain, was so fragile that it could be broken down by the power of just a few children. How cruel, how sad, how lonely, how trying, how cold, how painful. So much so that I want to die. However,
死にたくない。死んでたまるか。
I let out a disgraceful howl while sobbing, and clung to my life. If I die here, if everything ends here, what was I even born for? Why did I live until now? Both of my parents died. I was left all alone and sent to a hellish facility. And it was my grandpa, Ifumi Takano-sensei, who rescued me. He had been pouring his heart and soul into Hinamizawa syndrome research. And I've been working hard up until today to inherit the will of the person who managed to give me happiness. No, I've been trying to make his work known to people all over the world. But if I die, if I'm eliminated from society, who's going to remember Hifumi Takano? Who's going to bear witness to the life he and I shared? So, I'll go on living. Live, 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 live. I'll definitely survive this! And even if I'm dragged through the mud, even if I'm looked down on and despised by people all over the world, I'll regain my power and come back here! And then, I'll definitely get my revenge. Against this village, these people, this time, and fate itself!
殺してやる。殺してやるぞみんな。私たちを認めない奴らはみんなぶち殺してやる。
Eventually, the mountain trail came to an end and I arrived at the shrine grounds. The whole area was calm and quiet, but the medical team was nowhere to be seen.
逃げたか。
I no longer felt betrayed. They were all pitiful sinners. If any of them were to come back, I would expect a firm backhand from they could expect a firm backhand from me, like the worms they are. Right. They're just like the people of this village. A whole slew of stupid, miserable people who are so consumed by their ancient traditions and endemic disease that they become slaves to their sycophantic thoughts. Cowardly, ignorant people who want to be ruled by some king rather than challenging the rules of their society. So, I will return to Hinamizawa! And when I do, my ideas will be realized. It'll be a literal utopia. Here, I will become a god, and my curse will be forever passed down and carved into history. A savage god, awakened from a long slumber thanks to the damn war, who will curse the non-believers on the sacred night of Watanagashi. Those events year after year culminated in the resurrection of that god. It's the revival of Orishiro-sama's influence. Let them regress to their primitive fear of the curse. And when no one doubts the curse of Orishiro-sama, I will be completely revived. I will burst from the belly of this old corpse and come back into this world. When Orishiro-sama's wrath is invoked, the gates of hell will come open, spouting and overflowing miasma that will slaughter everyone. That final judgment will be a curse born from my own two hands! I will remain. My name, my undertaking, and my curse will remain. And then my existence will be deified in this forsaken land. And those who escape the curse will continue to fear it and pass that fear on to others. I will subliminate into the collective conscious of humanity and transcend. I am Orishiro-sama. I am the curse of Orishiro-sama. Worship me and be fearful. I am creating not only death, I am writing history. History will speak of this curse and remember my existence forever. I am the curse itself. Even as my body rots, my legend will endure forever. My existence is now eternal. Curse yourselves and curse your powerlessness. Realize my greatness! I am Orishiro-sama. I am a god now. Even if my body is destroyed, I will receive eternal life as my tale is told across the land.
夢を見続けるのはもう終わりにしましょう。
And here I was enjoying hamming it up. Way to kill the mood, Rika. Slowly, I turned toward the voice that came from behind my back. And back there was her, my greatest enemy.
あらあら、こんなところで何をなさっているのですか、お姫様。
With a grin and an unpleasant laugh, Takano glared at me with a sharp gaze. Dark red blood was still flowing down her forehead, and the wound on her arm made her uniform sticky and wet, but Takano paid it no regard as she pulled the handgun from her breast pocket and held it up. It's odd that she's even able to stand at all. Her right foot was moving unnaturally, like she had been dragging it while walking. Probably broken. There was also a faintly moist sound to the coughs leaking out of her mouth. The blood flowing from the edge of her lips suggested her lungs were probably damaged.
あなたの負けよ。あなたにはもう味方はいない。山犬は全滅して散布作戦も失敗に終わった。東京の本部も公安の査察を受けて緊急マニュアルの執行を宣言した。私を殺しても何も終わらないし何も始まらない。ずいぶんあっさりと言ってくれるわね、小娘の分際で。
The gun swayed left and right in Takano's trembling arm, as though it was resisting further abuse. Given the circumstances, I couldn't help but feel sorry for my most hated enemy.
その目はやめろ。あんたにその目で見られるのが私は一番大嫌いなのよ。子供のくせに人を見下すように冷めきった目で私を見るな。私はここに来るまでに数えきれないほど同じ時の繰り返しを経て生きてきたわ。あなたに殺されてひなみ沢症候群の生贄とされる運命をもう何百何千とね。どんなに努力しても知恵を絞ってもあなたに負けて殺されて、私の運命はあなたに殺されることなんだって少しずつ諦めかけていたのも事実よ。何を言ってるのよ。あなた頭おかしいんじゃないの。何を電波が入ったようなわけのわからないことをつらつらと。高野、あなたの強い意志と信念の力は本心からすごいと思っている。神に戦いを挑み、サイコロの目をどんな手段を用いてでも自分の思い通りに動かそうとするそのたくましさ、今ならわかる。 私はあなたを憎んでいたんじゃない。きっと羨んでいたのね。
気色の悪いことをそれ以上言うな。
Takano pulled the trigger and fired a bullet at me. But thanks to her unsteady aim, it flew right past me without leaving a scratch.
次は当てるわよ。
長かった。本当に長い時間をかけて、ようやくここにたどり着くことができた。でもね、そんな立場に来ることができたから分かったことがある。運命は意志の強いものに惹かれ、そして簡単に変わってしまうものなんだって。そしてそれをあなたは自分で気づいて、たった一人でやり遂げようとした。だからすごい。だから尊いと思える。
はあ？だから何？それを私に言って、一体あなたは何を期待してるっていうの？認めてくれてありがとう。あなたは心の広い人ね。なんて賛辞の言葉。でも大あいにくさまね。私はあなたが憎くて仕方がないし、まだ負けたと思っているわけでもない。だからどれだけ命乞いしようと、どれだけ口先だけでごまかそうとしても、私はあなたを一生に憎んで恨んで、そして殺してやる。
できるかしら、あなたにそんな傷だらけの体で。
オタクだ、小娘が。どうしてさっきから。
それは私の意志の力。誰かのために生きたいと思い、そして誰かの幸せを守りたいと願う、誰にも負けない、決して譲ることのできない強い心。
Well, if you're confident that you can catch her in your battered up state, you could always try smacking her to death with the butt of your gun.
それを打ち破れないのはあなたの意志の力が足りないことの証。だから弾丸が私に当たらない。私を殺すことができないってこと。
ふざけたことをさっきからベラベラと。
Takano swapped out the magazine on her pistol by beating it against her crippled right hand. And then she raised the gun once again, but the strength in her feet gradually dwindled. She wobbled to and fro, fighting as hard as she could not to fall down.
意志の力が足りないだと？ふざけるな。私がここに来るまでにどれほどの辛酸をなめ、泥をすすり這いずるように生きてきたか、貴様にわかるのか。私はずっと信じてきたんだ。祖父が心血を注いで調べ上げたひなみ沢症候群の研究の素晴らしさを、これを世間に知らしめて、おじいちゃんの考えが正しいことをバカにして踏みにじった連中にも認めさせるために人生の全てを捧げてきたんだ。どれだけ努力してきたかあなたにはわからない。その私に向かって意志の力が弱かったなんて侮辱。その口を引き裂いてでも取り消させてやる。
そうなら来るがいい。運命を信じ、自ら神に取って代わろうと思うのなら、その正しさを己の手で見せてみろ。
In a fit of rage, Takano pointed her gun straight at me. And when she pulled the trigger, the bullet was fired directly at my chest. I can see it. Even in a state of frozen time, I could clearly see the lead bullet rushing straight toward me, along with the distorted ripples emanating from behind it. Yes, that is the will of Neo Takano. It was the embodiment of the black soul that opened its jaws to consume the fate I believed in. And I was standing before this overwhelming power that I never once overcome, always succumbing to my fate. But it's different now. I've abandoned that weak, hesitant Rika Furude, along with those abominable memories of the past. I've thrown it away. So I won't be afraid. I'll show you. I can grab hold of my fate, my future, with my own two hands!
動くのです。動けますか？
ええ、大丈夫。
I was tied up in a wall of air, trying to rob my body of freedom. The ripples of the dark fate right in front of me had my limbs entangled, so even if I wanted to move, my reactions were slow, like I was made of lead. But this is not the power of a god, and it's not something fate decided. This is the power of Mio Takano's will put into action. In other words, it's not absolute. In fact, Keiichi already showed me that. The only way to escape these shackles is to overcome that will. A bullet that should have headed straight at my chest went off toward an empty area in an instant, just 30 centimeters to my right. Takano's eyes were opened wide as we faced one another.
神だかなんだか知らないけど卑怯とは思わないのか。
大勢で人質を取ってそれと引き換えに身柄を要求する。そして口封じに同行した人間を殺そうとした。そんな相手から卑怯呼ばわりは両親よりも片腹が痛いわね。
Burn!
言うな！
Takano lets out a wild scream as she continued aiming and pulling the trigger. But, having assimilated with the power of Hanyu, this will was not an absolute threat. It was merely a ball of lead.
どう？高野美代。まだ続ける？まだ戦う？たとえどんなに高みを望んでも、人は人。運命にも神にもなれやしない。まして他人の屍の上に自らの玉座を築いたところで、そんなものは酩酊の幻。ただの砂上の楼閣でしかないと目を覚ましてしっかり見ろ。神と呼ばれた貴様が言うな。分かっているはずよ、高野。あなたはもう誰を憎んでいいのか分からなくなって、それなら全てを否定し消し去ってやろうとやけになっているだけ。本当は何も信じていないのよ、あなたは。自分自身さえ。もうやめろ。殺す絶対にお前だけは殺してやる。
A vicious bullet passed right beside me, sending my dark hair flying like an explosion. In the next moment, I heard the sound of Takano's pistol firing empty. Takano clicked her tongue, and then momentarily turned her gaze away as she tried to replace the magazine. Now! Seizing that opportunity, I quickly shortened the distance between Takano and myself. Thanks to my sudden approach, she was slow to aim the pistol in her right hand, so I crossed my arms and swung them up as hard as I could. The pistol was flung out of Takano's hand by the surprise attack. It landed over on the cobblestone path in the shrine grounds, and I immediately jumped over to grab it. However... Takano immediately regained her posture and pushed me away, sending my body crashing into the pavement. By the time I managed to get back up, Takano had already loaded another magazine into her handgun. Her breathing was harsh and her shoulders were drooping as she turned to face me.
殺してやる。殺してやるぞみんな。
Takano stared at me with intent to kill and approached me with a blood-drenched smile on her face. I wiped the mud and sweat from my face with my clenched fist as I ran toward Takano with not even a shred of fear in my heart. Just then, Takano's neck suddenly came into view. It was stained red from scratches, and dark blood was pouring out all over her throat. I see. Those are L5 symptoms. So she is infected. Mio Takano was now trapped in a nightmare, just like Keiichi, Shion, and Reina before her. What can I do? It's so strong, and she's already gone beyond the abyss. Is there anything that can defeat Takano's vile malediction? Anxiety flashed through me for a moment. But I shook it off and then raised my head to turn toward Takano. Keiichi, I'll show you. Just like when you awoke Hanyu, I'll show you the strength of belief in my own fate. Though Takano has lost her way, I'll grab hold of her and drag her out of this darkness!
私は負けない。絶対に。だー！しつこいですね。まだ追っかけてきますよ。
Well, I'm glad to see you two are doing okay, relatively speaking. Shion leaned out of the passenger side window and tried to use the binoculars she swiped from the police station to look back. But she shrieked as a bullet grazed by her nose. Then she ducked her head and pulled back inside. Yeah, I'd stay low if I were you.
不用意に首を出さないで。狙撃されるぞ。
中にいても一緒でしょうが。
As Shion hurled that retort, she picked up the rearview mirror that had fallen by her knees and held it up to Akasaka. The face of the mirror was shattered and contained 3 bullet holes. And it wasn't just the mirror. The rear windshield was completely shattered, and the front windshield had a spider web of cracks running along the surface, making it hazy and hard to see through. I would try to shatter the front windshield then if you can, so you can at least regain some visibility. It was a little better in front of Akasaka's view from the driver's seat, but still seemed like it would be a good idea to break the glass just to improve visibility. Thank you! I'm glad we're on the same page then. Correction, the 3 of you.
安心するな。
4 of you.
あっちに乗せてもらったらどうですか、くまちゃん。No!
Well, at least Higuchi seems to be having a good time.
赤坂さん、あんた本当にハンドル握って運転してますか？それとも念力でも使って動かしてるんですか？
Ushi and Kumagai were desperately shouting in the back as they clung to their seats. Even Shion, who was wearing her seatbelt, felt like she might fall out the window if she relaxed for a moment. But Akasaka couldn't pay it any mind as he constantly turned the wheel left and right. They had left a few people with the old guy from forensics in Yaguchi to continue the investigation and rushed back to Hinamizawa, but a mountain dog blockade unit was waiting for them. They had successfully broken through the blockade thanks to Akasaka's skillful driving, but after that they hopped in a van and gave chase, leading to this dogfight. And since they were nowhere near the village, the enemy didn't hesitate to use firearms, so they turned Ushi's car into a honeycomb.
応戦しましょう、大石さん。このまんまじゃやばいっすよ。
さっき言ったでしょ。ニュー南部でこの距離じゃ撃っても無意味だって。オリンピック選手じゃないんだから。ほら、シオンさん。あんたも被疑者かつ未成年なんだから、その銃は返しなさい。
Dutiful officer even in the heat of battle. Ushi quickly grabbed the gun from Shion's hand as she tried to disengage the safety. Looking more closely, he realized it was his own gun. That demon girl. When did she do that?
なんかハリウッド映画に出演してるみたいっすね。そこに痺れる、憧れるって感じですよ。
私はこんな時にそんなことをほざけるあんたに憧れと殺意を感じますよ。クマちゃん。
でもやっぱ刑事は火力っすよ。決めたっす。俺明日からもう少し射撃の練習を増やして頑張るっす。
You should put time into target practice regardless of how peaceful things are in your life.
西部劇じゃないんだから銃の練習は普通必要ない。
Bullshit! You always need to practice your sharpshooting.
そもそもそんな練習場県警本部にしかないでしょうが。
なら偉くなって県警に行くっす。刑事ドラマの老刑事も言ってたっす。正しいことをしたければ偉くなれって。
ダメだこりゃ。
Is this guy gonna run wild with gun mania? Hell yeah! Ushi imagined reuniting with Kumagai after retirement, seeing a magnum slung in his belt, which sent a chill down his back. Now that's the Kumagai I want to see! Even in the middle of this conversation, bullets were flying over Ushi's head. Akasaka's temples shook as a bullet hit the windshield right in front of him, and the giant spiderweb finally spread into his view. However, Akasaka didn't seem concerned. He slammed his handgun into the windshield. Pow! The characteristic sound of shattering glass rang out, and a strong breeze started blowing in from outside.
いやあ、涼しくていいですね。
赤坂さん。あんた本当に私の知ってる赤坂さんですか？
No, he's super cop now.
豆鉄砲なんかクソくらえ。こういう時はそうロックンロールってやつですよ。
Akasaka scooped away the blood flowing down his forehead with his thumb, then licked it. He was acting very crass, but it seemed like he might have moved beyond dependable and into dangerous. Dangerous is what we want right now, my friend.
あのワゴンの天窓からなんか出てきましたよ。
It better not be an RPG.
何ですか？
Then Shion thrust her head out the window without any hesitation, despite being warned not to earlier, and looked at the car behind them with her binoculars and tilted her head in confusion. After hearing that, Ushi and Kumagai both looked back through the shattered rear windshield, and Akasaka looked through the left side mirror. A person rose up from the van chasing them, pointing a cylindrical object in their direction. It's an RPG!
見えますか、シオンさん。
ちょっと待って、揺れてるからよく見えない。なんか右に左で酔いそうって。嘘、あれロケットだ。
ちょっと失礼。
Ushi snatched the binoculars from Shion and stared at the van behind them. It was a powerful, highly explosive anti-tank ordnance, the RPG-7. I called it! Something only intended to be used on a battlefield. A weapon said to have changed the history of modern warfare. It was a fearsome weapon with a range of hundreds of meters, capable of taking out most tanks in a single blow. In other words, the advent of this weapon ushered in an era where a single infantry unit has the power to take out a tank. A weapon that could repaint the history of warfare. That was the RPG-7.
ギリギリまで引き寄せろ。撃てるのは一発だぞ。一撃で仕留めろ。
The RPG-7 fires unguided rockets, so it's difficult to hit fast-moving targets. But it doesn't matter how fast your opponent is if they're directly in front of you. Thanks to the way cars handle, a sudden movement to avoid it would inevitably result in the car rolling over. If you invite them into that, there's no need to even hit. Ooh, that's definitely not good. Even if they only had one shot, firing from behind gave the mountain dogs too big an advantage. The car right in front was already full of wounds and the driver was heavily fatigued, as was evident from the noticeable awkwardness of the car's movement. and they were driving down one of the few long straight stretches of road near the village. In other words, this was the perfect opportunity.
まだまだ引き寄せろ。距離100未満まで引き寄せろ。
分かってる。速球継続。車の速度を上げろ。
The man sticking out of the skylight on the van quickly set up a metal box under his feet to stabilize his posture, then assumed firing position. The rocket had an irregular tip and an eerie glow to it. It looked like it was licking its tongue at the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to lap up its prey.
距離200。150。攻撃用意。
He placed his finger on the trigger of the RPG-7.
みんな衝撃に備えてください。
距離100。停。
Eh? Nothing fired. Was it a dud?
A dud.
That moment, the man who was measuring the distance while leaning out the window felt terrified. The man holding the RPG clung to his shoulder as he dropped down into the car. There was a lot of blood on his shoulder. No way. Did a sniper get him?
スナイパー。銃声はなかった。距離は不明。ここは。
Quickly peeking out from that same skylight was a mistake. The man holding the binoculars and trying to determine the direction of the sniper was hit by a shot from the sniper, just like the previous man, and fell down to the car. This time, too, was as if they were aiming. No, they were definitely going specifically for the tip of the shoulder.
ターゲット2人目沈黙。
Look who we got here! The Bloodhounds are here!
よく見えてる。
Tomataki, you son of a bitch! You came through!
運転がうまいね。あんなワゴン車なのになかなか照準の固定が骨だよ。
それを当てる2位は何なんですか。続いて応戦を。
了解。運転よろしく。
Tomataki opened the back seat window and leaned out once again. The heat and accompanying wind roughly stroked his cheeks. And, while on those shaky, poorly maintained roads, he calmly stabilized the aim on his gun. At the same time, the people in the van leaned out and aimed their guns as well. Their firepower was exactly equal. No, the other side had the advantage in terms of numbers. The road ceased being straight and began meandering like a snake. That led to some occasional intense swinging around inside the car. Shooting under these circumstances would be extremely difficult. However, it's said that the mountain dogs couldn't withstand the tension. They were firing bullets that had almost no chance of hitting as they wildly swerved down the road. The bullets occasionally struck the body of the car, causing an unpleasant metallic sound inside.
富武に身を乗り出していては危険です。大丈夫。あんな下手くそじゃ当たらないよ。僕の生徒だったらゼロからやり直しだな。このような状況下では動きを読むんだ。挙動を予測し、弾幕で予測射撃をするんだ。当てようと思わない。弾幕に突っ込ませるようにするんだ。こういう風にね。
Tomataki measured that he had sufficient distance, analyzed the road conditions to time his shot, and then fired. His shooting style was something the people who knew it fell in love with. Never losing control, even in an intense firefight. Still, it's not too heavy on power, so there's room to grow. Even in the irregular position of leaning out of the car, Tomataki was able to make excellent use of it and achieve an outstanding hit rate. The opposition had poor gunsmanship, so only a few shots were able to hit. But his shots etched precisely where he aimed. Based on his elaborate shooting, you'd never guess they were using the same gun. Guess this just goes to show the difference between an amateur and a professional. The disgusting sound of that was well ingrained into the body of the van, reminding the men of Tomataki's power.
くそ、あいつめちゃくちゃ射撃がうまいぞ。何者だあいつら。
まさかあれ生きていたのか、富武に。
A hair-raising shudder ran through the mountain dogs in the van. It was the worst possible thing in their current situation, and they didn't even want to think about it. Well, think about it you will, whether you want to or not. And, right now, it was chasing after them from behind.
バカな。だからってこの距離だぞ。この曲線路だぞ。なんでこっちは無理なのにあっちは当てられるんだ。
聞いたことがある。富武にって事故で事務屋に移ったらしいが、教官時代は不正規戦部隊の射撃教官だったって。
なんだよそれ。ってことはあいつ。
He's the sharpshooter instructor. Tomataki's shots were gradually hitting closer and closer to the driver's seat, as if coaxing them to surrender. They already understood their situation. These guys were precise, threatening shots, despite being fired from a disadvantaged chasing position. And moreover,
なんだこのプロペラ音は。
まさか散布部隊が。
いや違う。この音は軍用ヘリだ。
the heavy motor sound ran through the skyline as it was like it was chasing them, and the huge helicopter danced as it followed them. I like that the sound effect for the helicopter rotor only loops for a few seconds before it starts again, and you can hear the brief pause when it loops. It wasn't a small craft for spraying pesticides. It was designed to be used by paratroopers. Definitely military.
ひばり9より大鳥1へ。やられた。富武だ。番犬部隊が来やがった。
大鳥1、富武は射撃の名手だぞ。死に急ぐな。なんとかその場を脱出しろ。
脱出ってどこに逃げるんだよ。どうする。投降するのか。
これまでかよ。
2、奴らは諦めたようです。あ、白旗が上がっていますね。
賢明だね。あ、向こうの車も止まったようだ。あっちは故障かな。
それにしてもさすが富武に腕は全然なまっていませんね。
まあ短期決戦ならね。長期になるとやっぱりきついよ。
When Tomataki returned to the car, he flashed a thumbs up towards the driver's seat. His usually easygoing atmosphere didn't change, even immediately after a fierce gunfight. That was another face of Jiro Tomataki.
Tomitake-san, 生きてたんですね。
I was wondering when you would show up.
よかった。行方不明になってからみんな心配してたんですよ。
ごめんしおんちゃん、心配かけて申し訳ない。実は隠していたんだけど、僕は。
なあ、富武さん、そのことはいいです。ここにいるみんなそのことを知っていますから。
え？
With a vacant expression and his eyes open wide, Tomataki looked at the faces of Shion, Ushi, and Akasaka, all covered in cuts and scratches. Indeed, even though Tomataki thought he needed to explain what he was doing here suddenly rushing in, everyone looked completely cool and composed.
東京直属の戦闘部隊、番犬。そして、あなたは本部との連絡役を務める富武に。
あなたは一体。
申し遅れました。私は警視庁公安の赤坂警視です。富武2号といえばもうお分かりですよね。
じゃああなたがリカちゃんの言っていた警視庁公安の。
そうです。ですが心配しないでください。私はこのひなみ沢の件についてどうこうするつもりは全くありません。今は時間が惜しい。リカちゃんが危険なんです。お願いします。
力を貸せって一体どういうことなんです？
富武のおじさま、お願い。
Uncle.
話は途中で説明するから。本当に時間がないの。
Tomitaki was confused about how they all seemed to know his true identity. But even so, just looking at Akasaka and Shion's serious expressions, he could tell this was no trivial matter. After a short breath, he gave an affirmative look to the subordinate in the driver's seat, then opened the rear door.
狭いですが乗って。行きがてらちゃんと話を聞かせてくださいね。高野美代以下入江機関直属の山犬部隊の早急な制圧を開始します。彼らはすでに地上での発砲を繰り返しており、もはや一刻の猶予もありません。番犬による並走使用を申請いたしますので許可を。
こちら調査部の岡。上層部からの許可がようやく下りた。地上にて移動する富武2位の指揮に従い、速やかに任務を全うせよ。
Permission granted.
つい今、高野3佐と小此木2位に逮捕命令が発行された。入江機関の即時制圧と山犬への武装解除命令も出た。あとは富武2位に全て任せる。頼んだぞ。
話はつきましたか？
今より番犬部隊は高野と小此木以下山犬部隊の鎮圧に向かいます。空挺部隊が先行して山頂部材木置き場より侵入。この車のすぐ後から地上部隊が神社より突入を開始します。
And to support those words, many jeeps could be seen in the rearview mirror.
どの程度に強いんですか？
Strong enough, I'd imagine.
その番犬という連中は？
山犬が機密保持のための多目的部隊だとしたら、番犬は戦闘のみに特化した精鋭部隊です。装備も人材も比べ物になりません。おそらくあっという間でしょうね。
Akasaka had mixed feelings on his face as he heard that. Seeing that level of resistance, the mountain dogs that continued their resistance until that last minute would meet a disappointing end. Everyone here had no idea just how many life or death crises today had entailed. If that was the truth, it would be nice to just go home and sleep like a log. After enjoying the temptation for a little while, Akasaka suddenly spoke up.
富武さんはどうしますか？
どうするって何をですか？
私たちはリカちゃまと聡子たちを救います。まだみんな戦ってる。
そうだね。僕にも助けたい人がいるんだ。
私もまだ約束は果たし終えていません。
なら行こう。まだ諦める時間じゃない。
Tomitaki straightened his expression as he said that, then looked straight ahead, and then his mouth seemed to faintly move, but his words didn't reach Akasaka's ears. The time allowed to evade bullets was gradually getting shorter and shorter. Better hurry up then, Rika. My injured leg still hadn't healed, and it was getting painful. Honestly, though, I found it amazing. Takeno's willpower allows her to keep pushing, even after coming this far. I guess it's not just a dream. But I can't afford to lose. My dream is to bet it on this game. That was Hanyu's wish. And because I'm fighting to prove that the feelings of happiness I share with my friends are stronger than Takeno's will. A bullet brushed along the side of my temple like it was going to bore through it. Shock and numbing pain ran through me, and my consciousness started to flicker, but I still managed to stay standing. But My body was at its limit. The pain in my leg flared, like I was struck by lightning. I grimaced for a moment, slow to move. A bullet flew just beyond my shoulder, and the strands of dark hair that were too slow to get out of the way were shredded by the blast.
お疲れでございますか。お姫様。
Breathing hoarsely, Takano blew bubbles of blood from her mouth, while still holding the handgun up with a smile on her face. What tenacity! Such strong power of will. On the other hand, my body felt as heavy as lead, and the nasty smell of blood rising from the back of my throat was painful. My heart was throbbing violently like it was at its limit, and my breath got caught in my lungs multiple times, leading to several coughing fits. I was dizzy. Every joint in my body was trembling and aching. With things as they are, wouldn't it be easier to just fall to the ground? How many times did those dark whispers reach me as I tried to get my rough breathing under control?
Rika! 大丈夫ですか？
久々に感じる自分の体ってこんなに重いものだったかしら。
Even while trying to put on a bold front, a strange sensation was welling up from the depths of my heart. This pain and suffering is proof that I'm living here, right now. How wonderful. What a precious sensation. I shifted all my attention to Takano. Now, I'm betting everything on the truest sense, competing to see where the dice of fate land. Anxiety crept in the moment I realized. So, I went into desperation. It's scary. It's dreadful. It felt like my feet were going to freeze many times over. So, I struggled to maintain my courage.
あなたこそ平気なの？羽生。高難度の力を使っていたらいくらあなただって。
構いません。たとえどうなろうと、これが僕にとって最後の機会なのですから。
最後？それはどういう意味？
これで。
I twisted my increasingly heavy body to dodge Takano's bullet by the breadth of a sheet of paper. But it forced me to shift my center of gravity, and the impact of that movement made it feel like my right ankle was broken. I suddenly lost all strength in my feet and collapsed on the spot.
Checkmate よ。お姫様。
Clicking the hammer back, Takano looked down on me as I fell on my back and pointed the muzzle at my chest. And, with burning evil flames in her eyes, and the sunset sky against her back, making her look dyed in blood, she grinned.
わざわざ殺されに来るなんて。あなたも変わってるわね。おとなしく隠れていれば、誰かの背中に隠れて生きながらえることができたっていうのに。
Indeed, that may be true. But I regret nothing. I was able to come this far thanks to Keiichi and Hanyu's help. Even if I could have gone on living like that, I'm going to continue down this path. I'd rather not turn into someone completely dependent on the help of others. Besides...
決着をつけたかったのよ。 あなたと私、この悲劇と喜劇を引き起こしてしまった責任者としてね。
悲劇と喜劇だと？
ええ、喜劇よ。こんな田舎の世界どころか日本一つからも見落とされるような寒村で、ただ自分のエゴを通すためだけにお互いの命を賭して戦い合っている。まさに茶番だわ。そうは思わない？高野。
そうね。とんだ喜劇役者よ、私たちは。たかが風土病一つで国を動かし、大勢の人を巻き込んで道化を演じる。それで得られるものなんて何もないっていうのに。
そう。だからあなたの祖父への思いがそれだけ強いなら認めてもいいと思った。私がいらない存在であなたこそが運命を支配するものだって。
And even I myself thought it was strange, but I was smiling. I haven't given up. I haven't abandoned anything. In fact, it's the complete opposite feeling.
でも今の答えを聞いてどうやら違うと分かったわ。
The oppressive smile vanished from Takano's face. I sensed the faint unrest in the color of those eyes, while I myself felt surprisingly calm. And I remembered the words of my friends that I heard through Hanyu.
だから今度こそちゃんとやりたいんだ。俺は力になれるかな、リカちゃん。
ならばしっかりその目で見ろ。次期当主園崎美音の覚悟をな。
迷惑をかけ合えるのが仲間だって言ってくれたよね。それはレナも同じ。圭一くんやリカちゃんに迷惑をかけられるのは全然嫌じゃないし、力になれって言ってくれた方がとっても嬉しい。
あなたはそんな人じゃない。フルでリカは私が一番大切な、そして一番誇りに思える友達なのです。だからもっと生きるためにあがいてごらんなさいませ。今度は私があなたを導く番ですわ。さあ。信じるのは難しいけど、信じなきゃ始まらないって誰かが言っていた気がします。信頼に応えなきゃ奇跡を信じる資格なんてありませんからね。
私は無条件で君の味方だ。君のどんな不思議な話も信じるよ。そして君の命を狙うという敵を必ず打ち砕いてみせる。
ありがとう。なぜか一番嬉しかった言葉です。臆病な私に時間を許してくれてありがとう。
私はこれでも医者だ。そんなことをたとえ命と引き換えでも認めるわけにはいかない。
During this long journey through thousands of reincarnations, I thought everything was the same, repeating everything over and over. I thought that in the end, it all amounted to nothing. But that's definitely not true. They accepted me. They believed in me. There are people out there who pray and wish for my happiness just as much as I do. I am not alone. My life is not mine alone. So, I can't die yet. I can't afford to lose here. Because I am one of the strongest club members, Rika Furuti.
やっぱりあなたは一人ぼっち。でも私はそうじゃない。運命に屈するのはあんたの方だ、高野美
たわごとを、どれだけ世まいごとを言っても、死ぬのはお前で生き残るのは私だ。さよならよ、くたばれフルデリカ。
大丈夫。
Calmly. Even I felt surprised by how quietly I softly muttered that. It was a strange feeling. Even though I had been staring at Takano, who was full of hatred, anger, and malice right in front of me, my heart was surprisingly calm and refreshingly clear. Devoid of fear, there was no anger, no sadness, or even hatred. Hanyu's sorrowful cries felt so distant. With the support of that voice, protected by that feeling, I've been able to go on living up until now, wrapped in that kindness, that soft, warm comfort. That happy world and the fun times were so delightful. I just closed my eyes and entrusted this body to her. What is there outside this world? I thought about seeing it many times, but I couldn't stand the pain, suffering, and sorrow that I felt every single time. And one day, without even realizing it, I closed my eyes and gone to sleep. I made excuses, saying, "This is my fate." I told myself that miracles can't happen so easily. But now, I finally opened my eyes. I stepped forward with my own 2 feet. Destiny is the culmination of human will, and miracles are one of its many crossroads. So from the beginning, there was never any reason to give up. If the grapes on the tree are bad, there's no need to begrudgingly force them upon yourself. By opening my eyes and taking a step forward, I was finally able to realize that. Maybe it was too late. A wiser person might find it laughable at this point. But for me, this is the beginning. So, let's face it head on. Believing in my thoughts, my hope, and my future, while protecting what's important to me. Yeah, I finally realized. Hanyu's greatest power, the thing that protected me, wasn't her ability to rewind time. Hanyu's power is to assimilate those who resist fate and transform their will into strength. It's normally invisible, but even for invisible objects at the crossroads of time, she was able to give me a choice. Her paranormal power gave me the opportunity to open a path through fate. And that's why I understand. I'm the Shrine Maiden of the Furuti family. I'm not the reincarnation of Oishiro-sama, but I share the same blood as Hanyu. Memories revived within me. They must have been from the distant past. I hurt someone precious with my own hands. Hanyu? Someone irreplaceable. My best friend, who is always by my side no matter what. No, my mother. An evil, murderous instinct coursed through my entire body. I despaired and trembled. So, I accepted everything as my own sin, and I turned my blade on that person, ready to return to nothing. Even if I'm slain, I'm glad. In fact, if I were to lose my life, I wish it would be at their hands. But in the end, she didn't fight back. Even as I shed tears, even as the pain struck me, and I was covered in blood. Quite the opposite. In the end, she saved me. Yes, that's why. I must not despair. It's not an option. This is the life protected by Hanyu. This is the destiny Hanyu led me to. All I can do is rejoice in its preciousness, continue breathing strength into that soul, and just go on believing. So, I won't be defeated. I won't succumb to Takano's bullets. No matter where those lumps of lead may hit my body, I'll stand back up as many times as it takes. And I'll show her, again and again. I'm no longer that naive girl, Rika Furuti. I used to succumb to despair, continue to suffer from remorse and guilt until my death. But no more. Now, go ahead and try to shoot. Mio Takano! My strong, firm will's right in front of you. Even if you're determined not to miss. Even if you're convinced there's still one more bullet left in the magazine. I will not be defeated! And I absolutely will save you! So please, Hanyu, and everyone, believe in me. Just as I believed in you! The hammer of Takano's pistol let out a dry sound as it slammed into the empty chamber. Her remaining ammunition was down to 0. Takano's bullets could no longer claim my life. This was truly the end of this ridiculously childish farce. However, it was all thanks to the will of myself, Hanyu, and the people around me willing to stand up and fight. And above all, defeating Mio Takano for the very first time was proof of our victory over fate. Joke's on you, this isn't the first time for me. Before long, the bullets had been exhausted, so Takano crumpled to the ground while letting out a dry laugh. She still tried to swap out the magazine, but it slipped and let out a rattling sound as it rolled in front of me.
Takano.
ざまあないわね。この距離でもここまで追い詰めても当たらないなんて。これが人の身の分際で神に挑戦した哀れな女の末路ってことなの？
She let out a heavy, dry laugh, with no strength behind it. Takano turned her gaze away and looked up at the sky. What was beyond that line of sight? I couldn't understand. Probably Grandpa. An escape from destiny that I've waited such a long time for. And a glorious moment where I won a future of happiness. It's right there, right in front of me now. And yet, I couldn't be proud or happy. I couldn't even feel relieved. Some might say it's spiteful for the winner to be arrogant enough to sympathize with the loser. I couldn't help but think our relationship was never like that. But that's not it. It's not like that. After all, this miserable-looking Takano right in front of me was what I looked like just before coming to this world. I can't sneer at that. This woman has always been the opposite side of my dice, even in this final world. If one wants to roll a 6, the other has to land on 1. That was the self-contradiction in our relationship.
教えて、高野。どうしてそこまでの強い思いをもっと前に向けられなかったの？
今さら何を決まってるでしょ。
Takano confidently looked up at me as she said that.
努力すれば、強い思いがあれば、きっと夢が叶うと思ってきた。だから万難を前にしても、きっと報われるとずっと耐えてきた。でも、それを目の前で打ち砕かれた。その悔しさがお前にわかるか。
Takano's eyes were moist, and tears flowed down both her cheeks as she trembled in anger. That was probably the first time I'd heard weakness in Takano's voice.
この村に来て、ひなみ沢症候群を研究して、村の人々の症状を抑制し、制御する親虫の存在を知ったわ。それがあなたよ、フルデリカ。なんであなたには生まれながらに神として存在できる力があったの？村人に慕われ、尽くされて、不思議な力を見せて、今ですら頂上の力を見せつけて、私と祖父は神になりたくてずっとこれまで歯を食いしばって頑張ってきたのに、何も持たない人間には思いを形にする資格すらないのか。
私は別にそんなものを望んでいなかった。ただみんなと幸せに過ごすことが私の望みだった。
望んでいなかった。それすら勝者にしか語れない言葉なのよ。憎かった。私をここまで追い込んだ運命が憎かった。私とおじいちゃんの研究を台無しにしたやつらがのうのうと生き続けて、必死にあがき続けた私たちは踏みつぶされて、捨てられて、そしてあなたは皆に囲まれて幸せで楽しそうで。
高野、だ
からあなたはね、私にとっては憎むべき運命の象徴。だから憎んだ。そしてあなたを取り囲むありとあらゆるものを憎むしかなかった。私にはそれくらいしかもうできることはなくなっていたんだ。
ならあなたはそれで救われたのですか
？Another person appeared before Takano, as if a ghost had emerged from my body and stepped forward. Hanyu quietly looked down on her with a severe, expressionless look that was quiet, but neither compassionate nor mocking.
あなたはあの時の
リカを殺して、このひなみ沢を殺して、すべてを無に帰して、それであなたが手に入れるものは何だったのですか？惨劇は残る、醜い爪痕として。そしてあなたと祖父はその深い闇に閉ざされた暗黒の歴史に名を残すこととなるでしょう。それでよかったのですか？それであなたは満足なのですか？
それでも闇に葬り去られて無意に消え去るよりもはるかにマシだった。
もしあなたが本心からそう思っていたとしたら、私もここまで理科を生かそうとは思わなかった。フルでは鬼の血族、そしてお社様とこの村が祀る魔がつかみの血を引く者の末裔。人が魂を清め、罪をあがない、過去を神の皆のもとに忘却する祭りのために生を預かりし存在。でもあなたはそうじゃなかった。本心から自分の行いを信じてはいなかった。
むしろ誰かに止めてもらいたいと強く願っていたのではないのですか？殺意と敵意で自分を押し隠しながら。
違う私は
高野美代、いえ、マナは違いましたね。田無美代子、あなたの不幸な過去を私は知っている。それを乗り越えようと、どれだけの苦しみと悲しみを乗り越え、身を粉にして戦い続けてきたのかを。だから私が許そう。人の世はそなたに罪のみそぎを求めるだろう。この度の過ちはそなたを生贄に捧げることで払われよう。それが人の世の払い方なれど、我は人にあらず人を超える存在にして欠けたる輪を埋める存在、人の罪を許す存在。人の罪は人には許せぬ。我こそが人のこの罪を許そう。
私は
I forgive you. Exorcising wounds in search of a sacrifice is not the way of the human world. It's the logic of demons. This is not the world of man. It's a world where demons nest among humans. A world of demons. It is impossible for flesh and blood humans to break through that reasoning. In order to make that happen, I've taken a seat at the throne of gods. It's a pain I've endured for 1,000 years. I've wanted to abandon this seat. I wanted to see a world where everyone can get along, even without a god directing it. And in the past 1,000 years, I finally found a fragment of just that. Now, child of man, I will forgive your sins under my name. Kneel and repent. Ask for forgiveness, and then I will give it to you. God will forgive a human. Forgive the sins of a mortal. Hani walked up to Takano and reached her hand out.
ありがとう。でもね。
However, before Hanyu could reach her, Takano squeezed out her last bit of strength to rise to her feet, then laughed a wry smile on her face. There was something radiant in her face, She looked calm and pure, like possession had been expelled from her. You're not gonna off yourself, are you?
あなたが許してもきっと誰かが私を許さない。いいえ、本当に許さないのは私自身ね。私は自分の研究のためにたくさんの人を殺してきた。その中にはリカちゃん、あなたのご両親も入っている。謝るつもりはないけれど、忘れたことは決してなかったつもりよ。
あれは悲しい誤解が全ての原因だった。それを言うならちゃんと説明をしてこなかった。私にもその罪はあるわ。
そうね。そう言ってくれるとほんの少しは気持ちが楽になる。でもね、夢の中からみんなが呼びかけるのよ。私の両親、施設の仲間、おじいちゃん、そして私が殺してしまったたくさんの人たちが、私にも早くこっちに来いって何度も叫ぶ声が耳から離れないのよ。もう血みどろなのよ、私の手はね。そして私に残されたのは敗者として受ける人の裁き。
高野、
リカちゃん。
Oh, look who finally showed up. Just then, Keiichi and the others emerged from the exit of the mountain trail and ran over to me. And almost at the exact same time, I could hear footsteps coming up the stone steps, likely the detectives and the people from the Sonozaki group. No, that wasn't all. It wasn't just the police who emerged from the stone steps. A sniper squadron equipped with specialized weapons seemed to be in the forefront, and they jumped out at once to set up their rifles. These were probably the riot police dispatched by Prefectural Police HQ to infiltrate the clinic. And all their muzzles were aimed straight at Takano, right in front of me. No way. Are these guys actually assassins sent from Tokyo?
お迎えが来たみたいね。
Takano slowly looked back when she saw them. And then she stood tall, using strength I didn't know she had, and turned straight toward the sniper squadron.
さあ、撃て。高野美代はここにいるぞ。
狙撃隊、構え、狙え。待ってください。奴は。
やめて。
撃て。
その時、すべての時間が止まって見えた。駆け寄ろうとした私は手を伸ばすのが精一杯で、それを背中越しに振り返って向けてくれた高野の顔はとても綺麗な笑顔だった。
The sound of 4 rifles firing tore through the air. It was too heartless, too cruel, and a mournful explosion of gunpowder covered the area. However, the bullets didn't reach Takano's body, because they... Hanyu was standing in front of Takano. What the hell? All the rifle bullets had been caught in her body, and then she collapsed to the ground. But she's a god, right? This surely wouldn't kill her, right?
このクソバカったれ！なんで非武装の被疑者に発砲を許可した？
奴は凶悪犯だ。だから発見したい射殺しろと本庁からの命令だ。
それは誰ですか？もっとも裏を探ればどういうつながりかわかるんですけどね。
なんだお前は。こんなところに何の権限で？
警視庁公安の赤坂警視です。お見知りおきを。ほんともあんたはすぐに破滅でしょうけどね、大高警部。
羽生、しっかりして、羽
生。Stunned by the sight of the god of Hinamizawa falling right in front of me, I held her and called out to her as hard as I could. Takano was standing looking down, with an expression that said she still couldn't comprehend the situation. I'm having trouble comprehending it myself, to be honest. Can't be. Did she seriously take my sins upon her own body? And to go so far, for someone I hated. A god that I swore I no longer believed in. Did this for me? But that time didn't go on for long. The police and the specially armed soldiers rushed forward to control the situation. It was the Special Bloodhounds unit from Tokyo. The squad members surrounded Takano all at once and pinned her down where she stood. Then they forcibly twisted her arms behind her back and tried to put on handcuffs, as Takano moaned at the pain of her wounds. But that moment,
Mate!
A man emerged with a divine glare. A divine glare, you say? So this is what a divine glare looks like. It was a man we knew well. But his expression was unlike anything I'd seen in him before. It was full of determination.
調査部の富武2位だ。彼女は調査部が保護する。
しかし富武に司令部から直ちに東京へ連行せよと命令を受けています。
君たちは彼女を見て気づかないのか。彼女の全身を見ろ。かきむしった後でいっぱいじゃないか。ひなみ沢症候群のかなり高いレベルの発症が疑われる。
This is definitely playing out like Chapter 8 did. Her wrists, arms, and neck had a number of horrifying scratches. Those were scars from Takano scratching herself all day today. I wasn't sure if it was specifically due to this syndrome, or if she was just agitated. But after seeing Tomitaki come to that conclusion after giving it a look, I couldn't say otherwise.
しかし、サンサは医療機関で予防薬の投与を受けているはずです。発症するわけがありません。
君たちは資料をちゃんと読んでいるのか。予防薬は 100% の効果を保証するものではないと書いてあるぞ。十分読んでいれば彼女の状態が末期症状であるとわかるはずだ。調査部は彼女の尋問にあたり、ひなみ沢症候群の治療が最優先されると考える。そもそも今回の事件が彼女の意思に基づくものなのか、末期症状による妄想錯乱によって引き起こされ、それを誰かが利用したのか。慎重な判断がなくては全容解明は不可能であると考える。
That's right. I plead my innocence on account of insanity.
彼女の罪なのか、彼女の病んだ病の罪なのか、この場で断言するのは不可能だ。それを判断するためにも彼女には治療を受ける権利があり義務がある。
シロさん、
彼女を直ちに医療機関本部へ移送し、発症レベルの検査に入る。高野3佐の治療体制を準備させるよう入江2佐に連絡を。ただし3佐については今後厳重に監視をつけ、全ての行動には制限が加えられるものとする。詳細は調査部長岡一佐から 上級司令部を通して命令があるはずだ。
The squad members communicate over their radios, but essentially, they seem to have no objections. Their role only extended until her arrest. Interrogation and any further investigation became the responsibility of the research department. If that's what the research department is saying, then it's fine. Tomitaki walked toward Takano, who was kneeling in the mud. He suddenly gasped. Seeing her caked in mud and blood, Tomitaki felt his chest tighten while gazing at Takano in the miserable state of having lost everything. The loneliness she must have been holding on to. The sadness of losing your place to return to. Why couldn't he have noticed sooner and been more understanding? Right. Everything came too late. Really, it was far too late. But, even so.
高野さん。
Takano looked up at the man she once loved with confusion in her eyes as he held out a hand to her, and then she dejectedly looked down. Tomitaki gently hugged her body as muddy drops came spilling from her eyes and down to the ground.
いいんだ。もういいんだよ。
ジロさん。
And this time, Tomitaki made no mistake in the words he wanted to convey.
迎えに来たよ。高野さん。遅くなってごめん。
The words she never wanted to hear. But at the same time, the words she truly wanted someone to say. So, she was saved. Miotsukushi was finally embraced by a grateful warmth. She was overcome with joy and able to rest her still tight heart.
ジロさん。ジロさん。
Takano buried her face in Tomitaki's chest and cried. The meaning behind those tears was something only she and Tomitaki could understand.
大石さん。
ああ。ええ。
Yeah.
私は何も見ていませんよ。
Yeah, I agree. Nothing to see here. Let's move along.
あとは赤坂さんのお仕事です。
You heard him, Super Cop. The rest is up to you.
頑張ってくださいね。
Higurashi shook his belly and turned on his heels as he ordered the rest of the police to vacate the premises. The soldiers under command of the Sonozaki group also left under Kasai's orders. Before long, Takano was handcuffed and taken to the Irie Institute for detention. Although the handcuffs were in front of her rather than behind. Rika-chan was desperately calling out to her. Hanyu slowly opened her eyes. This was a space where time had stopped. It was a world where nobody could move and nothing could be heard aside from us. Hanyu! She squeezed her hand so hard to transmit the thoughts inside her heart. Looking at the horns growing out of her head, I felt the odd sensation that I might have met her once before, in some other world. No, it's not quite right. I'm certain I met this girl. Somewhere. Think hard, Keiichi. And it wasn't some distant past memory. In fact, it was just a short time ago that I was with a girl that felt just like her.
Hanya!
Rika-chan was shedding tears while clinging to Hanyu's hand with both of her hands. While gazing at her, Hanyu wore a warm, reassuring look on her face and smiled. Seriously, this wouldn't actually kill her, right?
夢を見ましたのです。とても楽しくて、賑やかで、幸せな夢を。
その手札を右から言うよ。エース3、4、7、ジャック、クイーン。
今さら手で隠したって見え見えですわよ。
ごめんね、羽生ちゃん。これがスペードのエースだよね。
Is this from chapter 8?
あっかり
思い知ったか、羽生。入部試験の洗礼を思い知れ。
圭一は自分の入部試験の恨みが混じりまくりなのです。
ほらほら、ケイちゃん、そんなこと言ってていいの？羽生、ケイちゃんの右のカードで上がれるよ。
上がりましたのです。
わあ、きったねー。こうなりゃ本気モードでいくぜ。よくもこの俺を怒らせたな。羽生、お前初日の下校からいきなり尻尾付きブルマの首輪付き四つん這いで帰宅したいのか。
あらあら、それはむしろ圭一さんにこそ似合いましたよ。
It would actually be more suitable for Hanyu, considering she barks like a dog and acts like a dog when distressed. Might as well complete the package by giving her a tail and a collar, have her walk around on all fours. Then she truly would be the mascot of this little group, the pet mascot.
いいねいいね。それをレナがお持ち帰り。僕も圭一に恥ずかしい罰ゲームをしてやりますのです。
いい提案だね。おじさんはそいつに乗るよ。
なんでいつの間にか俺包囲網が完成してるんだよ。上等だ。てめえら全員四つん這いで下校させてやるぜ。
You know what? Sure. Why not turn ourselves into a herd of dogs?
圭一がいて、ミオンがいて、レナがいて、サトコがいて、シオンがいて、そしてリカがいる。僕は部活メンバーの一員としてみんなと楽しい毎日を送っているのです。思い出しただけでもとっても幸せだったのです。
大丈夫よ。これからたくさん楽しい毎日が過ごせるようになる。どうしても超えることのできなかった昭和58年6月から次の時間へと進むことができるのよ。夏が終わったら秋になって、それから冬を過ごして春を迎えて、私たちは一つ年が上がって進級する。もちろんあなたも一緒に。だから私を一人にしないでよ。
ごめんなさい、リカ。本当はずっと前から僕は心に決めていたのです。
There's no way this is actually happening. You're pulling my leg.
僕がいる限りあなたは独り立ちすることができない。何かの困難があった時、 僕に頼って期待してしまう。だから僕はあなたの元を離れようと思っていたのです。
This is actually happening, isn't it?
あなたの運命が希望へと開かれたその時はあなたと。
そんな
それにリカはもう一人じゃありませんよ。圭一たちがリカの力になってくれるのです。これからもずっと。
But they're not dogs! We need the dog! You!
私はあんたがいないと何もできないの。あんたなしじゃこれからどうやって生きていけばいいかわからないんだから。
リカ、あなたなら大丈夫です。僕は信じています。いえ、やっと信じることができました。
As she said that, Hanyu gently stroked Rika-chan's teary cheeks, like soothing a child.
道の行く先に何があるのかわからないのはみんなだから。みんなはその時その場所、そして出会った人を大切にして生きていくのです。それは怖いかもしれない。裏切られることも傷つけられることもあるかもしれない。でも自分で踏みしめてきた道だからこそそれを貴重に思える。そして他の人の道を同じように大切に思って分かり合うことができる。僕はいいえ、私は昔の自分の娘をあなたに移し込んでずっとそばにいたいと思った。そしてあなたと一緒にいたい思いでずっと私のわがままに付き合わせてしまった。本当にごめんなさい。
わがままだって、わがままだって。
Rika-chan vigorously shook her head, and every time she did, transparent droplets went flying around the area.
私はあなたと会えて幸せだった。あなたと過ごせて楽しかった。あなたがいない世界なんてもう考えられない。考えたくもない。だから行かないでよ。ここで消える方が私にとってはずっとわがままで卑怯よ。
リカ、フルデの者が桜花の子孫たちがいつまでも幸せでいてくれますように。
You can't do this to me.
そのためなら私は鬼になろう、神にでもなろう。そして永遠にみんなを見守ってただ幸せだけを願って。
You can't do this to me.
生まれる時に出会えたらきっと嬉しいだろう。死にゆく時にそばにいたらきっと悲しいだろう。だからもしも別れるべき時が来たらその前に姿を消そう。心を凍らせて感情を透明にしてあるがままを受け入れ、すべてをただ見守ろう。そう思っていたのに、あの子の桜花の面影を持ったこの子だけはそれができなかった。それが私の過ち。リカを永遠の苦しみと悲しみに巻き込んでしまった私の一番の咎。でもひどく心苦しかったけど、私はリカと会えてとても幸せだった。
そしてきっとこの思いのために私はこれまで生きてきたんだなと心からそう思える。母様、そう言うなれば自分はジョーカー。
Don't bullshit me like this. Tomoe's the Joker. Please, for the love of God, don't die on me.
カードが足りないときはオールマイティにその隙間を埋めるけど、すべてのカードが揃えばその役目を終えて集団から消えてゆく運命だから、もういいだろう。このひなみ沢でフルデの者たちを守り続けてきた私はみんなを解き放とう。
そうか、君がリカちゃんの言っていた羽生なのか。
ごめんなさい、圭一。私はこの世界でずっとあなたたちを騙してしまっていた。リカの姿を借りてあなたたちの輪の中に黙って潜り込んでしまっていた。本当にごめんなさい。
As soon as I heard that, I've been holding back a strange feeling that I noticed a while back. But now, I was convinced. Right, we all thought it was Rika-chan, but it was actually her longtime companion, Hanyu, who had taken her form. So, even back then...
もし僕があなたは僕の味方でいてくれますか？
え？いや、リカちゃん、何を言って。
答えてください、圭一。僕はあなたたちの仲間の一人でいてもいいのですか？でも私はあなたたちの仲間に加わることができて本当に楽しくて幸せでした。たとえ偽りだらけの時間でも化け物と呼ばれて意味嫌われてきた私にとって何にも代え難い宝物でした。
そんなことねえ。お前のおかげで俺たちは何度も救われた。レナとサトコを守ることができたのもお前がいてくれたからだ。
圭一。
だからお前はもう俺たちの仲間なんだよ、羽生。化け物じゃない。誰が何と言おうとも絶対にだ。
Yeah, seriously! Listen to the man! He's speaking nothing but facts!
ありがとう、圭一。その言葉を聞けただけでもあなたと会えて本当によかった。羽生！リカ、あなたは強い人。
Please don't do this to me.
今まで私のせいで気づく機会がなかっただけで、本当は誰よりも優しく生きる意志に満ち溢れた人だから、あなたはきっと幸せになる。私は心の底からそう信じています。羽生。圭一、リカを、私の大切な子をあなたの仲間たちに託します。だからどうかこの子の幸せになってあげてください。ずっと。
ああ、約束する。絶対だ。俺たち仲間全員でリカちゃんのことをいつまでも守り続けてやる。
Hanyu had a delighted smile on her face when she heard that. And when she gently closed her eyes, her body gradually became bathed in a bright light.
Hanyu!
Please, no.
やだ一緒にいて私ともお願いだから
いますよ。だって。
As she said that, Hanyu was wrapped in light and then disappeared. That moment, the world around us slowly turned white and blurred as it melted away.
私はこの村の守り神ですから。
Fuck everything. Fuck everything. Well, hell of a way to pour a massive oil stain on this relatively happy ending that I had until this shit happened. Fuck you, I guess. Or rather, fuck me. How dare you? How fucking dare you? Just fuck you. I'm alright, I feel like I got a gaping hole in my chest right now. I'll survive. I haven't really been saying a whole lot, but I'm just been on the edge of my seat throughout this whole thing, and well, now that it seems like it's over, again, they tear a massive hole in my heart with this shit! I don't know if Ryushiki07 himself wrote this or some other asshole wrote this, but... well, whoever wrote it, you're an asshole and I hate you! I hope a dog pees on your shoes. In honor of Hanyu. The dog that you denied me and the club. And the audience. In this story. Fuck you. Alright. I got that out of my system. How much more is there left of this? Can't be too much more, right? For this arc, I mean. I'll keep going and see. Reina and Mion had already arrived at the meeting spot and were waiting for me.
ケイチくん、早く早く。もう、ケイちゃん遅いぞ。はい、カウント5秒前。3、2、1。
I focused on the pedals and accelerated at once. And then I passed between the two of them like a swift breeze, and cranked the handle to the right slide into a drift! Oh no, he crashed. He's better, he's likely better off than me right now. Right now I just feel dead inside. His are only flesh wounds. Mine run much deeper. Fuck you, author.
やっぱり自転車で反転ドリフトは厳しかったか。当てて。
はあ、まったく何やってるのさ。ほら、捕まって。
I grabbed Mion's outstretched hand and rose to my feet, while wiping the dirt from my waist and back. My body ached in a couple places, but oddly enough, there were no actual injuries.
その代わりに自転車が五輪中だよ。
Is it as dead as I feel inside right now? I could use a dead buddy.
どうすんのこれ。
Mion had a stunned look on her face as she lifted my bike back up. Wait till you get a load of my innards. I'm sure they look just as stunning, if not more so, right now. My broken, battered, beaten up innards. The chain had snapped off the heavy fall, and the brakes hardly looked like they'd work on the front wheel. The front basket was broken, and a few spokes were missing. Man, it was a total wreck. I definitely feel like I got some spokes missing.
だいたいね、ケイちゃんはやることに無茶が多すぎるんだよ。せっかく怪我が部活メンバーで一番早く治ったのに、校長先生に戦いを挑んだりしてさ。
その罰ゲームを考えたのはお前だろ、ミオン。
でも校長先生感心してたよね。自分の服にかすったやつは戦後になって君で2人目だなんて言ってくれたでしょ。
Oh, I see. So, I'm not the first, huh? I'm only second. I'd be more interested right now, but I'm kind of dead inside.
さすが部長さんだよね。
That was an excessive price to pay.
おうよ、これから俺のことを世紀末覇王と呼ぶがいい。
新しい世紀が来るのはまだまだ先だよ。
Lucky you. The 21st century kind of blows.
その前に人間やめちゃう方に、私は一生分の時間をかけてもいいね。
I hope for your sake that you'll be dead. We live in a cyberpunk dystopia.
それって人間のままだったら結婚ってこと？
Oh yeah, that's right. We're supposed to be bumping pelvises and making Mion Keiichi mutant babies together, aren't we?
なんでそうなるかこの耳戸島は。
Mion turned red and chased after Reina. Reina had gone full power into delusion mode as she ran circles away from her. So Reina had been hanging out with Shion more often lately, and she has no need to learn the things she's teaching. In fact, she would be better off forgetting. But with that knowledge, her ability to run away had been significantly upgraded. I wouldn't say she was pure before, but her violent destructive power is more terrifying now than it was when she was less malicious. It looks the same to me. Shion Sonozaki and Reina Ryuko. I have no idea just how much my life will be impacted by my inability to stop the formation of the strongest, most evil tag team duo in history. I didn't even want to think about it.
ほら、さっさと行くよ、レナ。ケイちゃんも準備して。
ああ、いや、そうしたいのは山々だが。
自転車がこの状態じゃニンともカンとも。
ああ、そっか。仕方ないな。それじゃあ私と二人乗りで。
I guess I'm not completely dead inside if I felt a slight twinge in the corner of my mouth over the idea that you're going to be riding Mion's bitch seat. Huh, Keiichi?
二人乗りいいな、いいな、それ。ケイチ君が運転して、みーちゃんが後ろで。
Who said anything about Mion being behind him? It's her bike. I think she should be the one that's allowed to drive.
背中と胸がごっつんこ。はうはう。
As fun as that is to think about, I repeat what I said. It's her bike. I'm just the passenger.
先に行くよ。ケイちゃんは走っておいで。じゃあ。
I guess we're just walking, Keiichi.
みーちゃん待ってよ。
おい、俺はどうか？そのスピードで走れってか？おーい！
それはずっとずっと夢見ていた未来。
Come back.
毎日が楽しくて賑やかで、
I'll give you a treat if you do.
明日が来るのが待ち遠しくて眠れなかった幸せな時間。
I'll give you two.
来た来た。こっちこっち。
Shion, Sadako, and Rika-chan were impatiently waiting for us at the entrance to the shrine.
やっほーしーちゃん、今日もいい天気だね。
今日の集まりにはシオンは呼んでないはずだけど。何を言っているんですか？サトコの行くところ、保護者役のネーネーがいなくてどうしようって言うんですか？
私だって呼びたくありませんでしたが、理科のおしゃべりがペラッと。
サトコの明日からの昼食は人参のグラッセとピーマンの肉詰めと。
Fucking hell, I read carrots as something very different to carrots for a second.
Shame on you. What you do in the privacy of your own home is disgusting enough, but to let it spill out into our streets where my future children will someday play, well, that is going too far. Shame. Shame.
ねえねがいる方がこういう場はとても楽しくてございましたよ。
Sako was completely under her control. Tears came out, she laughed and smiled, but Rika-chan gave her a pat on the head to comfort her. I wish someone would pat me on the head right now. I could use some comfort. I'm kind of depressed.
生きていればきっといいことがあるはずなのです。ファイト王なのですよ。そう思うならせめてニヤニヤ笑いながら言うのはやめてくださいませんこと。
Then, I arrived shortly after Mion and Reina. My whole body was drenched in sweat, but I finally managed to reach the shrine.
相変わらず時間にルーズな方ですわね、ケイチさんは。パープロ以下の学習機能なのです。ニパ
ー。なんで走ってきたんですか？下半身強化？ねえ、お姉。
I'd give you a cookie for actually making me smile, Shion. Truly, I do appreciate it. But my smile is only skin deep.
なんでもないの。何怒ってるんです？
とりあえずなんか飲み物を。おお、シオン、その麦茶もらい。
あ、それうどんだしですよ。
Blah!
何気ない日常の繰り返し。でも、いつでもどこでも笑顔が絶えなくて。
And now the skin deep smile is fading from my face. Come back!
時間の過ぎるのが早すぎると思えるくらいに、中身がぎっしりと詰まった素敵なひととき。
というわけで。
You're making me want to write this whole thing off as non-canonical!
昨日でリカちゃんの怪我が治って、部活メンバー全員が5体満足に立ち戻った回帰祝いとして、本日はささやかながらお祝いの昼食会を開きたいと思います。
Thunderous applause rang out all at once from the club members, along with the excited cheers of the entire class. And each one of them had a paper sake cup, filled with juice or cider, because underage drinking is strictly prohibited. I was about to say, I may be a depressed wreck right now, but I would not quietly permit you to give alcohol to children. We dropped in some ice and prepared for a toast. 1 week had passed since then. It was now the first Sunday in July. It's been a week. The day after the incident, we found ourselves going to school despite all our injuries. Naturally, Daiki, Suguru, and the other classmates, and Chi-sensei were all astounded and told us how concerned they were. Of course, we couldn't really talk about the situation. We laughed at one another through our injuries during club activities, and went back to life as usual. Although Rika-chan was understandably unenthused. I feel your pain. Literally. And I was thinking about what I could do to cheer her up. But the next day, she cheerfully participated in club activities, and everyone was surprised to see her claim total victory. On the way back home, Rika-chan cautiously called out to me, and smiled as she spoke up.
僕が楽しく過ごせることが羽生の一番望んでいたことなのです。だから僕はこれからも一生懸命笑っていこうと思うのですよ。
Fake it until you make it, right? Looking at Rika-chan like that, it might be rude of me to say, but deep down I felt like she had grown up. Just as Hanyu wanted. Strangely enough, nobody actually saw Hanyu protecting Takano-san, aside from me, Rika-chan, and Takano-san herself. According to me on the others, they just noticed Rika-chan and me crying beside Takano-san as she was being taken away. That's why Rika-chan and I vowed that we would always remember Hanyu.
それでは代表して我らが敬愛すべき担任千恵先生に乾杯の温度を取ってもらおうと思います。どうぞ。
カレー万歳。乾杯。ここでもカレ
ーだ。Never change, Chi-sensei. Could you share some of that curry with me? Maybe something hot and spicy is just what I need right now to break myself out of this funk. Then we spread our lunches out in front of us and happily pecked at them with our chopsticks. Of course, the most popular item was the so-called Reina trademark special, and the younger kids must have been eyeing it up, because they all immediately jumped on it. The cuteness of Reina's deadly "I want to take it home with me" was smothering the entire world. Well, aside from that, some of the girls we were asking her to give a lecture on cooking, and that sounded really fun, so we went for it. But I need to check her bags before she heads home to make sure she is not packing any of the junior students away from in there. Incidentally, some people originally suggested that we have a barbecue today, but that plan got shot down by flat rejection from Mion. You got something against barbecue, Mion? Well, that's fine. If we allow the adults to gather again under the pretense of playing the fire, they might twist it into a celebration for the selection of our honeymoon destination. I guess that's an understandable concern. Which meant it wasn't decided democratically, but by the power of the class rep calling it for everyone to prepare lunchboxes. But then, Shion stirred up the class with cheers that the class rep shows Sonozaki-san favorable treatment, which caused a ruckus that took a long time to settle down. Alright, speaking of Shion.
シオン、そういえばミオンから聞いたけど、お前、看護学校受けるんだって？
Is it for Satoshi by any chance?
ええ、来年ね。ちょうどいい機会だし、頑張ってみますよ。
Gonna try to become Satoshi's nurse, are we? Shion raised her paper cup and grinned as she said that. It was easy to imagine she was pursuing that path for Satoshi's sake.
まあ、それも確かにありますよ。でも、それだけじゃないです。誰かを傷つけるよりも、誰かを癒して治してあげる仕事の方がずっと楽しくてやりがいがあるって。ちょっと思えるようになってきましたので、ね。
I can kind of understand the mindset, actually.
さとこ、気をつけなよ。さっさと病気を治さないといつかあんたの担当の看護師さんがシオンになるかもしれないよ。
I don't know. Functionally speaking, would things actually really change all that much if she did? She's practically Sako's wet nurse already. Upon hearing that, Sako's face twisted to resemble the painting The Scream, as she let out a flashy eek! Now you're lying to me, narrator. That was not a eek, that was a fwa. First you rip out my heart, and now you try to gaslight me. Fuck you, author.
それは悪夢ですわ。まさに生き地獄でございますわ。
ちょっとさとこ、それはどういう意味ですか？あ？
Just that you are a very efficient demon nurse, if there ever was one. Or will soon be one, rather, I'm sure. Demons came from hell, last I checked.
まあ、ちょっとは冗談だって。かなり本気ってことでしょうが。だいたいシオンが看護師なんて無理無理。看護師ってのはね、そりゃもう難しい試験と実習を経て責任重大な仕事を昼夜問わずに頑張らなきゃいけない大変な仕事で。
You know, that actually reminds me, my dear wife-to-be. Aren't you supposed to be doing some balls-to-the-wall studying for entrance exams of your own?
大丈夫ですよ。少なくともお姉よりは勉強も成績が上ですしね。なら問題出すよ。ズバリ、アメリカの首都は？
Oh, this ought to be good.
ニューヨーク。
I'll give you props again, Shion, for making me laugh despite how crappy I feel right now. Thank you, truly. New York.
合ってる。
You two are twins. You're both dunces. There's a single brain cell between the both of you. and you both take turns using it.
No, that's wrong!
It's Washington, D.C. And how long are you guys going to keep fighting these low-level battles? Are you guys seriously motivated to take your exams? Don't question it. Your stupidity amuses me. It's giving me warmth and filling my soul with sustenance, which it desperately needs right now more than anything. Now that my happy ending was stolen from me!
たくさんの仲間たちに囲まれて助け合い助けられ合って少しずつゆっくりと確実に進んでいく。誰かの幸せを思って、そしてその人も私にそう思ってもらえるように。
From that point on, everything was fun. Speak for yourselves, I'm not having much fun right now. Saiko's symptoms have dramatically improved since the incident. Unfortunately, the Hinamizawa Syndrome research project is still scheduled to end in 3 years, as originally planned. But thanks to the samples and data gained from Sadako's treatment, they're likely to find enough clues to lead to a powerful, if not perfect, treatment regimen. The coach was happy to say that if things go well, they might be able to eradicate disease before the project comes to a close. Fingers crossed.
それぞれが自分の道を見つけて歩き出して、そして進む先には小さいけれど強く確かな輝き、そう希望があった。
ちょっとだけ熱気にほてった体を冷やそうと、私はみんなの輪から外れて木陰に腰掛けた。本当に楽しい仲間たち、本当に愉快な毎日。それはすべて私たちが手に入れた、何にも代え難くて貴重な私たちのための宝物だった。ねえ羽生、見えるかしら、みんなの笑顔が。ねえ羽生、聞こえるかしら、みんなの楽しそうな声が。あなたは私のそばにもういない。それを思うとまだ寂しくて悲しい。でもね羽生、この世界はあなたのおかげで手に入れることができた世界。そしてあなたが気づかせてくれたからみんなで守ることができた世界だから、この世界に私が生きている限り、私はあなたを忘れない。そしてあなたもこの世界からいなくなったことにはならない。そうでしょう羽生。だってあなたはずっと私と一緒にいたのだから。そしてこれからもきっと。
もちろんなのですよリカ。
不意に風が通り過ぎた瞬間、羽生のそんな声が聞こえたような気がした。羽生、あなたの姿を見れなくなってとても寂しい。あなたの声を聞けなくなってとても悲しい。でも私は心に決めたの。あなたの願った私の幸せを、あなたの望んだ私の喜びを、同じようにたくさんの人にそれを願いたい。私の大切な人たちの幸せと喜びをずっとずっと祈っていきたい。それが フルデの家に生まれた者の役目。あなたが愛してくれたフルデリカが、あなたの誇りとしてできる一番の生き方だと思うから。
あ、やっと監督が来ましたよ。おーい。一体何でございますかね。会期祝いにプレゼントなんて。あ、
そう、日暮らしの泣く頃に、深く暗くてあまりにも長かった悲しい運命がようやく終わりを告げたことを、私は、そして私たちは、今この瞬間にそれを噛みしめていた。
ただいま。
Satoshi? He woke up! Well, way to mess with my emotions even more, right at the literal last minute. We lose Hanyu, but in this particular arc, Satoshi wakes up and reunites with everybody. And we even got an after credits sequence of images here showing what happened to everybody after the fact. I guess it's better than the alternative where before, you know, all this, but still. I guess this does at least manage to bring back some sweetness to the bittersweet ending that this whole thing's going for. Oh, look who it is. Look at her, gorging on herself. You friggin' sellout. Nice to also see Natsumi and Tomoe get a little reference here too. So, my thoughts on Miotsukushi Omote. Okay, so this is all going to be off the cuff, so I know, knowing me, I'm going to be a bit all over the place, and I would also not be surprised if I end up forgetting a thing or two that I want to mention, so don't expect this to be the most comprehensive or the most coherent summary of my thoughts on this arc I just done. But, let's see. Well, to reiterate some things I've said in previous videos all throughout this arc, and to give this very short Cliff Notes version of it, Omote to me feels like what Chapter 8 in the main story should have been, in regards to how its story should have played out, I feel, for the most part. Losing Hanyu at the end is a very bitter pill for me to swallow. I might as well just go ahead and get that out of the way right here and now. But, I mean, I do understand the thematic theme that they're going for with Hanyu leaving the story and leaving Rika's life the way that she did here. It's the whole, allow Rika the chance to live her life on her own 2 feet without Hanyu constantly being there to support her like she did throughout all the different time loops and worlds that they traveled through. Like, I get what they're going for here with that, but it still fucking sucks. And given what I know of Hanyu's backstory too, and everything that I've learned both in the main story and even a little bit here in this arc as well here, I mean, I think that she deserved a chance to have to live a happy life with everybody else, like what she ended up getting in Chapter 8, which, funnily enough, I think was actually alluded to during her death scene. The events that she ended up experiencing as she lay dying on the ground, that she ended up experiencing in Chapter 8 in the original story proper. Way to twist the knife further, I gotta say. So, besides losing Hanyu, I honestly don't really think I have any criticisms on Omote as a whole from start to finish. It fleshed out the story. It fleshed out the story of Rika and Hanyu in ways that were interesting. Like I said, we got to see a little bit more of Rika's upbringing before the loops started proper. Got some background information on her first meetings with Hanyu, how that relationship was formed. And, well, as I also said in previous episodes, a lot of the beginning portion of Omote was devoted to actually setting up the final conflict with Takano, but in a way that actually had some, to me at least, thematic significance in respect to all the other previous story arcs that came before. Like, every single major threat or hurdle that was that ended up being a problem in the question arcs of the main story, like Shion's madness, what's her name going missing, and thus bringing Teppei back to Hinamizawa, taking Sadako back to her home, and then just, you know, all the fun bullshit that ends up springing along both within Chapter 3 and in Chapter 7, respectively. And then there is I almost said Hanyu for a second. There is Reina that we got to see in Chapter 5 getting a comeback as well here. That almost ended up happening. The bottom line, the beginning portion of this whole of Omote was just all the major problems that came back in the question arc, and even at least one of the answer arcs, and threatening to derail Rika and Keiichi's attempts here to actually set themselves up for a proper fight before it had a chance to even get off the ground. So seeing Rika and Keiichi putting their heads together to deal with each and every one of those problems as they came across, and in a way that felt logically consistent with the story, and it made sense. It felt like natural ways to resolve those conflicts. At least to me, it did anyway. I really appreciated that. And I don't really think there's much more I can really say on those other than what I've already said before. It was just a really fun and engaging way to actually set up the proper final battle, as it were. And when it came to the final battle itself, well, I would say in some respects, the stakes, at least at first, seemed even higher than they did in Chapter 8 here, what with Takano attempting to unleash an airborne strain of Hinamizawa Syndrome, level 5, on the entirety of the village, which I still suspect could have very well have gone way past Hinamizawa itself, because it was an airborne strain and all that. If you got strong enough winds to carry that thing around, it could have easily spread to other prefectures in Japan. She could have very well have unleashed a level 5 Hinamizawa epidemic throughout Japan if the weather ended up being convenient enough for the virus to have spread as far as it did. Or not virus, the parasite, excuse me, but you know what I mean. Things could have gone very, very, very bad, not just for Hinamizawa itself, but but through the rest of Japan as well, arguably, if the heroes didn't manage to put a stop to that plane that carried the airborne strain when they did. If Akasaka, Ushi, and Shion and all those peeps didn't do anything to put a stop to it, that was definitely caught me off guard. Seeing Takano pull something like that off. And I won't lie, I mean, even though I knew somehow things were going to end up okay in the end, regardless, it had me thinking first. It had me thinking and concerned for a second. Like, how the hell are the heroes going to deal with this? Deal with a freaking helicopter spraying a freaking airborne virus around? Well, turns out the solution ended up being rather simple, all things considered, which I guess is another criticism I could levy on this arc, is that it felt a bit quick and anticlimactic how Ushi and Akasaka ended up actually dealing with that particular helicopter. It was very quick and done. Like, they just find the location and then boom, it was done, which, I don't know. I mean, I felt like there should have been a little bit more resistance from the villains somewhere on that, but I don't know. But on the other hand, given that, well, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm expecting too much. And maybe it was actually handled in a way that would be realistic in an actual realistic setting, like, but I don't know. That's something I'll have to think about and analyze after the fact, along with other details that I may or may not end up forgetting as I'm going over all this. But other than that, what else is there for me to say? Well, when it came to the actual final battle itself here, for the most part, it ended up playing very similarly to how events played out in Chapter 8 once we actually got to the forests surrounding Hinamizawa village. And I just also remembered there was the whole situation of the Irie clinic, which I thought when that was happening, we were going to actually have to deal with that first. Like, Keiichi and the club members and everybody else would actually have to do something about the clinic first before actually going after Takano. But that ended up being handled off screen and wasn't really given much thought or attention from what I remember. So I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't really get to see more of how that played out. So I guess that's another minor criticism I could levy on Omote, that we didn't really get to see how the clinic situation ended up playing out during the final battle. But anyway, I warned you guys. I'm likely going to be a bit all over the place because I'm going off the cuff here. I'm just talking I'm talking and going over things as I think of them. So bear with me. My thought, it's going to be disorganized chaos here. So, besides the clinic being a background element, the actual battle itself that takes place in the forests surrounding the village plays out in a very similar fashion to how it played out in Chapter 8. All the way up into what's his name, 13, the guy, the one soldier with the silver hair and all that, having that one little standoff with Sadako and then getting a barrel to the head. That was pretty nice, seeing that whole thing play out again, even though by that same token, it is essentially the same damn scene that we saw in Chapter 8, just being reused essentially for this arc. I mean, it's fine on its own, it really is. I don't really have any problems with it from a narrative perspective or anything like that. I guess it would have been nice to have seen a little bit more done with it to distinguish it from its Chapter 8 variant, but I don't know. It's not a big deal. I mean, as far as minor criticisms I've mentioned goes, this one's probably the most minor one of all. So minor, in fact, where I would barely even classify it as a nitpick. But seeing the whole twist with Hanyu having been in Rika's body this entire time, and us finding out about the way that we did, and how that ended up being foreshadowed throughout much of Omote, I thought that was masterfully done, and it blew my mind. It did not feel contrived in any way, because there was clear foreshadowing that was sprinkled throughout the narrative once the switch occurred, which, if you're eagle-eyed and you pay close attention, you can notice that these little bits of foreshadowing, even if you can't quite understand the context behind these little sprinkles, these little breadcrumbs that the writer ends up leaving you, which I didn't at first, but once the twist was revealed to me and I ended up remembering all those breadcrumbs and I finally understood what the context behind them, it made so much sense, and it was pretty masterfully done, this little twist. Like, it hinted its existence to me, but it did it in a way where I wasn't able to figure out the twist right away. So props onto the writer for handling this little twist in a pretty competent way, is all I gotta say. And then there's the actual confrontation itself, and between Rika, Hanyu, and Takano. I mean, I don't really have much to say on that other than it was just pure theater, and I mean that in the best way possible. Just pure theater. I was just silently on the edge of my seat, just watching it all unfold, and just enjoying the melodrama from start to finish. And then there's the whole, and which ties into, Takano's, the themes are surrounding Takano, her struggle against fate, how it plays into Omote's themes, and by extension, the themes of Higurashi as a whole, in regards to characters fighting against fate to try to seize their own happiness, how Takano, it was in a sense both similar and at the same time an antithesis of sorts to the heroes, in regards to, well, she was, on one hand, she was a threat to the heroes' own happiness, but Takano was also on the other side of the other side to their coin, who was also trying to fight for her own happiness, even though it ended up being at the expense of numerous other people around her. So she ended up being shown in this arc, I feel, to be a perfect foil of sorts to the main characters of the story, and Rika in particular. And again, I enjoy shit like that. I enjoy characters that act as effective counterparts to other characters. Because if handled well, they better underscore and highlight certain traits of other characters and end up making them more apparent, or even better, end up enhancing them in ways that make you appreciate those qualities within the characters more, if that makes sense. I'm not the best at explaining this sort of stuff off the cuff, Like, give me some time to actually write myself out a script or something like that here, and where I can organize my thoughts better, figure out which words I want to use, figure out how I want to say certain things. I've always been a better writer and a typer than I have been a off the cuff speaker, I feel. As long as I have time to actually organize my thoughts, I tend to speak better in general, but this is really the best way I think I can describe it off the cuff. Is that if handled right, a counterpart, whether they're evil or otherwise, to another character, can be very effective narrative tools as long as you handle them with care. And I felt that Takano was most certainly handled with care in that regard. And then theater just kept on happening, and, well, the ending happened. Hanyu died. I ended up crying inside. But, hey, I would say everybody, for the most part, ended up getting their happy ending. We even got Satoshi to wake up, which I certainly was not expecting. We never actually saw anything like that happen in Chapter 8's ending. But here, we actually get to see a reunion between Satoshi, Sadako, and Shion. And by extension, the rest of the club as well. Although Keiichi never actually met Satoshi before his disappearance. So, I mean, for him, it might as well be a first meeting. But we never really get to see that. We never actually get to see the reunion proper, but I mean, hey, it's definitely something. Where compared to Chapter 8, where we got nothing at all, but other than just a plain old generic, one day, hopefully he'll wake up and reunite with us, and we can all be happy together in the future. But until then, I will cling to hope, and hope that one day he will wake up. You know, that sort of shit. That just... I get the sentiment behind, but I mean, that stuff still on a fundamental level just depresses me, because what if he doesn't wake up? You ever think of that? What if he doesn't wake up? Then it's just tragedy. That in Chapters 8, that's just like a real possibility for when it comes to Chapter 8 for me specifically, that that Satoshi never actually wakes up, and so he ends up being the one black mark against what is otherwise a pretty, on paper anyway, happy ending for pretty much everybody except the bad guys. And I mean, hey, I got my criticisms on how Chapter 8 handled itself as a whole here, which I know I've talked about before, both on Chapter 8's video itself, on conversations I've had with some viewers of mine here. So I mean, I still think that Chapter 8 definitely is flawed in a lot of ways. But yeah, bottom line, I definitely am appreciative of the fact that we actually got to see Satoshi wake up here, even if we don't really get to see the fruits of such a miracle happening in regards to actually seeing the characters properly interact with him, even if it's just for a very short scene. It's definitely something. So I guess if you want to look at it one way, on one hand, we lose Hanyu in Omote, but on the other hand, we get Satoshi to come back at the tail end. So it's like you lose one, you gain another. So I guess depending on how attached you are to either Satoshi or Osashi or Hanyu as characters, it could be a mostly bittersweet. It could lean more towards the sweet end of bittersweet, or it could lean more towards the bitter end of bittersweet. I mean, for me personally, it leans a bit towards the Bittersweet, because even though she ended up being a relatively she had a relatively short screen time compared to the other characters in the main story and other arcs as well and all that here, I do like Hanyu. I really do. And I like Saoshi too, but he, at least to me personally, he's definitely more on the background character side of things than Hanyu ended up being, I would argue. So he doesn't really feel he doesn't feel like as much of an actual character to me as Hanyu ended up being, even if you could argue that the amount of screen time that both characters have really isn't that, there really isn't that much of a discrepancy in regards to the actual length between the two. I'm not quite sure how to explain it. I'm really not. But yeah, again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I just was not happy at all to see Hanyu leave the way that she did. Again, I get what they were going for here, but it still freaking sucks. But I mean, hey, if you don't mind all the other narrative shortcomings of the original Chapter 8, for the main story, I mean, you've got that ending at least as an option, if nothing else. So, I mean, hey, pick your ending, I suppose, but yeah. Other than all that, what else can I say? Okay, so I felt like Irie got to get a bit more development, got to get a bit more screen time and development in this story compared to Chapter 8 from what I remember as well, and we definitely got more of that for Ushi for sure. That's one thing I definitely really appreciated about that Omote did compared to Chapter 8, is that Ushi it felt like Ushi had some actual serious conflict, a personal moral conflict of sorts to deal with in this arc compared to what I remember him dealing with in Chapter 8. Like, it's been a while since I've done Chapter 8, so maybe there might be a few details I'm not remembering from Chapter 8 here, which, I mean, is a distinct possibility, but if I'm actually remembering things right, then it felt like Ushi's conflict when it came to whether or not he wanted to risk his retirement, his pension, in order to find out the truth of what happened to his old mentor, his old friend. It felt like it was given more focus and more weight in Omote than it was in Chapter 8 or any portion of the main story prior to that. And it didn't feel seriously overblown, and it also felt completely the way he went about it felt natural to his character. So I also really appreciate the writers giving some attention to that here, and by extension making Ushi feel like a more integral personal actor compared to the rest of the main cast in regards to the actual final battle, if that, for lack of a better description. His role felt more personal and more connected, more on the same level as the rest of the heroes and the supporting characters, compared to how he ended up feeling in Chapter 8, where he felt like more of a supporting character rather than somebody here in Omote who felt he was a lot closer to the front lines, like all the rest of the characters were. I guess that's the best way I can put it, really. Is that Ushi felt like, the way he was handled in this story, he felt like he was closer to the front line of the battlefield with the rest of the characters compared to Chapter 8, where he was more in the background, along dealing with some background threats. And that's definitely another thing I definitely think I prefer over how he ended up being handled in Chapter 8. And then finally, in regards to the village itself, even though... Okay, so... Chapter 8, from what I remember, when it came to the club members and the Ushi and all the rest, getting the support and the aid of the village when it came to dealing with the mountain dogs and Takano, a lot of that, from what I remember, ended up being handled mostly off-screen. Like, it was offhand comment and narration made, like, oh, hey, this stuff ended up happening down off in the background and all that, so... Uryu and the village elders and everybody else, they're on the hero's side. They're ready to do some serious throwdowns. If any throwdowns end up needing to be made, which they ended up obviously happening. So, yeah, it felt rushed. Just like a lot of aspects of Chapter 8 had been feeling rushed to me, but that is something I've addressed proper in other places, so I'm not going to reiterate at length that particular criticism I have of Chapter 8. So the heroes gaining the rest of the villagers' aid felt more natural, and it felt more earned here in Omote. And even though I wish we could have actually seen the conflict at the Erie Clinic play out a bit, so we could actually see the villagers do their part to help out, it was nice to actually see the heroes actually put in some actual effort on screen to earn their participation in the fight, in a way that didn't feel overly contrived or anything like that, or really contrived at all, to be honest. So, yeah. So, in conclusion, yeah, Omote just feels, for the most part, like how Chapter 8 should have actually played out. It's Chapter 8, but better, in almost every category that you can think of. So, with that being said, I'm perfectly happy to just write off Omote as my preferred ending to the main story. Sans Hanyu dying, of course, but I mean, hey. It's just one little black spot on what I generally consider to, narratively speaking, be an objectively better arc and ending to the main story. So, it's one little sore spot I guess I'm willing to put up with, just to have all the rest of the good that I feel Omote ends up bringing to the table compared to Chapter 8. So, yeah. Omote, my new Chapter 8. So with that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed this finale to Miotsukushi Omote and this latest episode of the Higurashi When They Cry console arcs. If you did and you would like to see more content from me, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you all next time for the beginning of Miotsukushi Omote PS2. Take care.